of 5, but Paul has resigned from the commission. Paul's up on, we thank him for his great job over the last years, and he's now off to Alaska, so can't complain about that. We have a new appointee. Do you have the name?
Eric Gaspar.
Eric Gaspar, but he isn't here yet, so we'll probably see him at the next meeting. On that, quorum check, go to committee updates. CPA has not met since our last meeting, so there's no update. Trails?
Last week, Thursday, we did have the Trails Committee meeting. At the Trails Committee meeting, there were 2 sets of guest speakers. The first set of guest speakers was the Open Space Committee, and they came as a whole. The entire body showed up. And they explained areas that they were interested in, requested information from the Trails Committee relative to areas that the Trails Committee might find that might be interested for the Open Space Committee to look at. And there was a generally good discussion which lasted probably 45, 50 minutes amongst and between the Trails Committee and the Open Space Committee. And there was an agreement that a report will be submitted between the committees, I think, once a quarter. And that was followed up by a discussion by the Vermont group that is at the present time working on the Riverlands to develop motorbike trails that are a little bit separate from the actual walking trails, although there will be some combinations at some points. Basically, what the Trails Committee is trying to do is to have a different type of recreational activity in a place like one of our trails. And at the present time, we have a problem with mountain bike activity on the lead mine property simply because the mountain bikers have no other place to go, and so they race right through all of the swampy areas, the wet areas, the wetland areas. Most of that just doesn't make a difference, and so we thought if we could put something in, it would be worthwhile.
You said motorbike. Did you mean motorbike?
Motocross.
Motocross.
I'm sorry, no.
No.
Mountain bikes.
Mountain bike.
It's my tongue that was twisted. There's no motor but mountain.
Okay, great.
And then the third part of the meeting was all about last Saturday's workday, where they split up into teams and went out and did the normal trails things.
Great. All right. With that, you have walk-ins?
Yes.
Okay.
Jamie, if you can sit up at the table. Yep, and just introduce yourself and your address for record.
My name is Jameson Quist, and I live at 15 Long Avenue in Sturbridge. And I'm here to talk about my failing rock wall that's becoming a monster project that I need help with. So I've never been here before, so I don't know what I'm doing. But I gave you guys a write-up as to what I've been doing over the last 18 months. We've had a bunch of contractors in to come take a look at it. I don't know if you want me to go through each slide, but that right there is the front of the house in the bottom right-hand corner. It's in green, but it's failing. It hasn't fallen yet, but if it follows kind of the progress of the rest of the what you see there, it's going to fall here by the end of the year. And that's the corner piece to the right. And then section 1, that was fallen when I got the house, and that's just gotten a little bit bigger. And then section 2, 3, and 4 all happened. It was all a wall last year, but very pitted, and all the mortar had been, kind of rubbed out of it. And then over the winter, it fell. So each of those sections, it looks from those pictures, because that's when they sold the house to us, they look intact, but they are completely gone now. And I'll show some pictures here as we go through. That's the section number 1 there, the one that was gone when we first bought the house. Picture on the left, obviously from the water, picture from the right from the grass. And that's just kind of what it looks like now. It's just like a crater, so to speak. That's as we're going right to left, facing the house from the lake. This is the next section. right near the corner of the wall. And that has actually expanded because as the water comes in and erodes, it's getting behind the wall, and it's another foot and a half fell in. Go to the next one. That's kind of as we're moving out more towards the point. That's the hole there on the left. That's pretty wide. That's like an 8-footer.
There's the key right there, that kid on the rock wall.
That's my son.
That's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah, he's the problem.
Yeah.
It is a problem, I'll tell you that, because they can't stay off of it. And then this one is out at the point of this little peninsula thingy. And this was bound to happen. I mean, it was very, very pitted last year, and then it fell off. And those are some pretty hefty chunks in the water. What I have done just over the last, few weeks has been pulling it up out of the water. Mainly because I don't want any more erosion to happen in the grass, because you can just see it coming further and further into the land. So I've kind of remade it in a very crude, just by putting those rocks back up. So you see the water kind of, slap up against it to deter it a little bit. But there are some monster pieces that are, unmovable. Next picture here is that should say some of my options. I don't know what happened there. Potential options. I got cut off there. I don't know why. But that's my neighbor. Those are my neighbor's house. That my rock wall is right there to the right as you're looking at it. But my neighbors have these concrete walls, which is one of my options, is to do kind of what all these other people have. It's not pretty. We get down to, this is where we get into some of this bio engineering, where you've got the coir logs, the coconut logs there in the back of of this description here with the deep root vegetation. I'm kind of been nerding out over the last 18 months learning how to do all this. Unfortunately, this option, which is very ecologically friendly, if you can see, I would lose about 8 feet of my land if I started where my current rock wall is now and went backwards. If you would let me do like kind of that rip-rappy stuff under the wall and then start it, I wouldn't have to eat as much of the land. But I've just, I'm under the impression that I can start something new at where my current rock wall is now.
I mean, if you did something more of this approach, because it could be considered like a restoration, you might have some flexibility. The commission could have some flexibility with allowing those impacts to land underwater. I think we talked about it a little bit. So Jamie's been coming in and we've been talking about the site and options and stuff like that. So there could be some flexibility with allowing some impact maybe to land underwater, because it would be a benefit to have this type of restoration. So there could be some flexibility with allowing those impacts moving forward with like a restoration. So there could be some flexibility with that.
So we have looked at that. This is just a Gabriel Cages. I don't know if you've ever heard of those, but they're just, cages, rocks in the wire cages.
We know them well.
You know them well. So some love them, some hate them, but that's just an example. That's a huge Gabriel cage there as well. The next one is, you folks seem to know this one pretty well. This is with Landscape Evolution. He's involved.
This is 64 South Shore Drive. We just permitted it last year. So
I like this. As much as I've talked to him, this is something that I would do. I should actually correct the record there. This is one of the ones that my wife will allow me to do. Just be perfectly honest. I do like it as well, but this is one she has visually approved. Keep going. I don't love this thing here, but it is an option. The precast, it's an option. Mine would not need to be that tall. I mean, we're talking, I believe mine's like 45 inches, 42 inches. I don't need all that wall. These are, again, some of these big blocks. I've had multiple masons who've suggested, have you ever considered doing these new 2 by 2 by 4 foot concrete blocks, where they would come in and excavate the whole rock wall out. They would put in a footer, and then they'd come and drop these like 800 with a crane and drop these 800-pound blocks. And they have like a tongue and groove type system where they would go in, and they're just so heavy, they're not going to move, they won't be eroded. And he's like, this thing would erode, way after your lifetime. Same thing here. This is a way to do a concrete type wall with a little design. And that's for you and my neighbors, but also for me as well, to at least have it not look like such a concrete wall. It's a concrete wall, but it looks a little bit less like it, I guess. Is that it?
that's the last one on
That's
there.
the last slide. So I think I went through on one of the pages just some of the prices. I mean, when I started doing this, I said, great, can you just repair it? And the repairs are about $3,000 per section right now, but they're not warranted, and that's what made me afraid. He's like, look, I can fix these and I'll do it right, but I won't warranty them because of what's happening to the right and to the left.
Right.
Hydrostatic pressure, I learned all about what is happening behind and pushing it out.
And you'll see that.
Right.
If you do that, if you go around very nice walls on the lakes, because of the speedboats and et cetera, and plus of the water coming off the land.
Yeah,
There are holes
yeah.
that are built. But you can, anybody want to speak? Or I'm just going to go through my personal.
Go ahead and I'll make a
Okay.
comment.
First of all, I hate 90% of what you showed us. I can't stand it, and it's just a personal opinion, okay? Because it kills the critters, it kills the lake, and you should have just bought a big piece of land and put in a swimming pool out in your yard, because that's what we're getting out of it is a swimming pool. What I would do, I would like to see, the best option from my point of view, would that you do rebuild it during the drawdown. You do it section by section or all at once, and rebuild it with the stone that's there. Backfill put stone in behind it, riprap, so that it prevents it from breaking loose. And if it's done well, your son may have to repair it in his middle years,
Please.
something like that. But that would be most aesthetic, and it would be best for the lake. I'm not, Becky says, we might consider some options going forward into the lake. I can't see putting anything in that lake. I mean, there's too much in it as it is. It's shallow, muddy, and, so that's my 5 minutes.
Sure. Some of these options, especially with the flat wall, what I have learned, and I don't know if, is that's part of the problem in the lake right now is everyone has a wall like this, so the waves just go back and forth endlessly. Whereas the riprap, or that 45-degree angle that has some, you can actually see the water dissipate through the rocks, and then behind it is all of the smaller aggregate that helps to dissipate as it gets to the land. They've got the sheets back there all buried. That would help the integrity of the lake, is to have some type of, I don't want that either. Our number one goal would be, which was what we thought when we were buying the house, is like, it needs a rock wall repair. We were quoted $10,000 to repair the wall, which we were like, okay. So we bought the house knowing that we'd have a repair. Subsequently, to repair it, now it won't be warranted. And then they said, well, if you were just to go piece by piece, this gets me 100. My problem is I have 180 foot of footage, what's it called, square footage or frontage that just wraps around, not even the whole thing. That's 180 feet to here. And I've got, I mean, you can see some of the quotes, they're $65,000 to $80,000, and that's not even remotely, and it's just not an option. I mean, maybe over time, but that's over a lot of time. That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of money.
Why would you get these guys to give you some
Yeah.
their
I agree
opinions?
with most of what Ed said, except that I mostly agree with your wife. What I would like to see is the boulders.
Yeah,
I'd like to see something where the critters can get from the lake to the land without, trying to scale a sheer wall. So that would be my option.
Except for geese, right? We are allowed to not let those crawl onto my land, right?
Jeez.
Good luck with that.
There's a hunting season.
Yeah.
We have a hunting season.
Do you really?
Yeah,
Give me a permit.
yeah.
But
12 gauge doesn't cost much these days.
I'd like to see this with plantings, because right now you don't have a lot of, shrubbery or anything
Yeah.
along the
Yeah,
lake.
definitely.
So something like this would be my preference, as opposed to having the wall.
This one does angle back a little bit too.
That's at a 45. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I might also add that there is a planting plan that goes with that.
Yeah,
So that
you're
when
seeing
you're
it.
done, after the rock work,
Right.
it all gets seriously planted, perhaps not with large trees, but with lots of berry-bearing bushes.
Yep.
Because our goal, as it says on the wall in back of you, is protection of wildlife habitat. And one of the things that straight wall does is prevent the wildlife from any ability to get back up on land. Where are they supposed to lay their eggs if they don't lay their eggs in the water?
Right.
Where are they supposed to get food if they don't eat the food that's in the water?
Right.
and they can't get out of the water if they run into the Great Wall of China. So the 45-degree option was one that we approved with this one. And I think you'll see if you go back to that as it gets completed, that it will be hardly as visible as it is there once they're done with it, because all of the plantings are going to soften the visual effect of it, and it's going to be able to accommodate much more of wildlife habitat. And the Conservation Commission has a couple of different things they have to worry about. Those are our 7 interests. But the things we most worry about are wildlife, and there is no net loss of water. That's why Ed's nervous about taking some of the lake back. A lot of the lake gets lost every year just because of things like the reverberation that you were talking about.
Right.
All those rock walls simply improve the wake.
Right.
So it bounces off yours, but the poor guy next to you that doesn't happen to have a concrete wall, whoa!
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like having him go in with a shovel and dig it out and throw it in the lake.
Sure.
Your kids will love it too.
Yeah. Bunch of critters in there.
So that's where we're at, Jamie. That's your 5 minutes.
Awesome.
You can go forward with,
15-minute walk-in.
Yeah. Or, I mean, if you're working with landscape evolution, obviously he's doing this one, but if some way something like this is incorporated into that and make it more
if it includes his
naturalized.
land and not our lake.
All right, well, I meant.
That's the way I would say it, as far as the vote is
There could be a
concerned.
compromise of a couple feet.
Becky.
I'm just,
It could be, but we're trying to give him the guidance that he needs to go forward in a direction that will be.
okay.
There's one other comment that we should make, though, and I think all the commissioners will agree with me. You said you had never come before this board before, you didn't know what was going on, and yet you provided us with enough information so that we could actually make some decisions. We could actually give you some guidance. That is 3.5 steps above what a lot of the first-time people come in with. What you did was use our 15 minutes the way it should be used. You came in and asked for help, but you first of all provided us with the details so that we could see what you really wanted. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brett,
Thanks so
for
much.
coming in.
Thanks, you guys.
I signed
Good
out.
luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I signed out. Tell your wife.
In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area, and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. These items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
6:15, request for determination of applicability for 47 Breakneck Road, Chris Mattioli, installation of an in-ground pool within an existing developed yard.
All right, so he's not coming in for it. I said I could
Okay.
present it. We had a site visit last week. We went out here. Ed, I have some pictures I can show you. This is our subject property, existing single-family house, existing yard. We have wetlands on the side here and then in the back to the rear. This is going on the side of the garage to the backyard. Backyard, it's existing lawn, and this is looking to this side where the wetland is in the woods over here. So,
And this is the,
oh, sorry.
this is the area where they want to put the pool.
Yeah, I bet
I'm
you're
sorry.
already there. I know the,
Okay.
you're looking at me.
So,
So we went there last Tuesday on a site
oh,
visit.
wait.
That's where she took the pictures. All of us were there.
So this doesn't have a lot of detail, but he uses his existing plan and
Yeah.
just showed the location of the pool on there. This is a request for determination of applicability. I've already kind of drafted some conditions which I would recommend that we implement for this. I think because it's, portion within a 100-foot buffer zone, all within existing yard, something that could be approved through the determination process. I would recommend, if we did move forward with approving it, it's a positive 2B that we're not giving any determination on wetland boundaries. Positive 5, it's subject to our local bylaw. Negative number 3, it is subject to the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah.
And to condition it, conditions, just most of our regular ones, obviously we post a sign, we have erosion controls in place. I would add I can't say that, language.
Specific.
Yeah, where the erosion controls should go, because they're not shown on the plan. Have a quick pre-construction meeting with the owner and the contractor for the pool project. Also included that, he did talk about leaving some of the excavated materials on site to level out portions of the existing yard. So I would add specific language in there about that it stays within the yard area. Erosion controls stay in place until the site has been stabilized and we sign off on it. So no expansion of the yard is approved under this permit. And then also that no discharging of pool water into resource areas.
Move that we close the public hearing.
I would like to hear from the audience. If
Oh.
Anyone in the audience here for that, for this, like to speak?
47 Breakneck Road.
I'd like to move that we close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Right. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move for the acceptance of the order of conditions as proscribed by our agent.
Second it.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Done.
All right, you can just sign this for me. So our next public hearing isn't until 6:30, so we have like
Mass
5 to 8.
DOT?
Well,
That's going to take.
yeah, it's gonna take a little while, and I did let the Cedar Lake Association people know that we were anticipating having discussion about 6:45, because our third public hearing
Oh,
was
okay.
canceled,
All
so
right.
they know
Okay.
they'd want us to wait for them. I have orders of conditions, which I sent to you for review for DEP file number 300-1033 for 11 McGilpin and 6 Apple Hill Road. This was approved at our last meeting. If you have any questions or comments on the permit, if not, would you sign, please?
We're going to have a problem with that because you need 3 signatures and I can't sign it.
David voted against it. So.
Okay, we'll have to wait then. All right.
Thank you for saving my signature.
Well, when Halterman comes back, you can get Halterman
Right.
to sign it. He was at all the public hearings, or most of them.
Right. Can you both sign it then?
All right, if you,
I
sure.
I think that's fine. We're not,
Maybe not.
we'll have to just wait on issuance. Change dates. Thank you.
Your signature, I'm not allowed to sign. I voted against it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You guys gonna talk about the problem at 179, is that tonight? Of the,
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I don't know
Yep.
how this goes.
Yep.
Yeah, no, we just have to, the first part of our meeting, we have scheduled public hearings. So once those are done, then we would have discussion on things that aren't scheduled as a public hearing, which would be that project, so, yeah. I mean, I don't think we have time to talk about it now.
Well, there is, yeah, I think we should do it now. We've got people here for it, and.
Right, I mean, I did tell other people from that neighborhood that we probably would talk about it around 7 o'clock,
Okay.
because I was
Yeah.
going by our agenda,
No, I
what
understand.
time, so I
Understand.
wouldn't
Yep.
want to, but I guess,
That's fine, I
Okay.
wasn't.
No.
whatever.
no, it's fine.
I just wanted to, have.
Only
that.
if-
We can wait, because there's
Okay.
probably other people.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, we have a couple more minutes. I have a request for, minor amendment to existing orders of conditions, so there's two, but one is for 77 Westwood Drive. This one, he has an existing permit with us, and he would like to add, this is just kind of quickly put on here.
You want to add a purple dot?
Yes, a blue dot,
Blue dot,
yeah.
okay.
So he's just kind of showing exact where it is. I have the plan that we approve, which is so this is the project that we approved. So he had an existing house. He's put an addition on the back. Was relocating a shed into his backyard, putting an addition on the front. So we gave him an extension, I think late 2017. Yeah, it was right after I started because his permit was expiring. He still needed to take his shed down. He was parking over here. We had some concerns with that. He did say he would address that. He has removed the shed. He has material stockpiled right there now to build a new one, and because he's still working on his addition. So once his additions are done, the area over here, he's going to plant, we had boulders up there and they're set back a little bit further. We wanted him to move them forward, but he can't pull them easily with his small tractor. He can only really push them, and one's already fallen in before. So he's saying that for the pool, he mostly would need to bring in small fill of sand to sculpt the bottom of the above-ground pool. Where the shed was, he has supplies for a new shed and retaining wall blocks for his front stairs. Once I move those out of the way, I plan on cleaning up that area and planting shrubs, flowers to make sure no one can park over there. I'm not able to move the rocks to the top of the slope with my tractor as it's not strong enough to pull them. I'm afraid if I try too many things to move them, they may end up rolling down the bank to the creek. So he has been working to address the kind of outstanding things that we asked him to. He's still working on his project. He'd like to add the above-ground pool within the existing yard, which is already developed.
One of the things for the board to remember is that this property is set on a slope. It's a flat part, and the backyard slopes almost vertically straight up. So the place where he's putting the pool is flat.
Right. I mean, you can't,
Well, you see the driveway?
yeah.
Is he removing trees to
No,
his pool?
it's already,
No, it's
it's already
all-
clear.
Yard,
Go back,
lawn.
where's the pool? I missed the,
In back of where the cars are
Where
parked.
his cars are.
Yeah, so the pool's gonna be in the back of the house, like right back here. So if we're looking at it, here's the house, the pool's gonna be back in here, which is lawn. It's right next to where the addition is.
how far is it from the stream coming down the hill?
So it's outside the 50-foot buffer zone. And that is a slope here coming down, and the stream is over here.
Outside the 50-foot. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in its existing lawn area.
Yeah.
All right.
And everything on that flat surface is previously disturbed. It was an old gravel pit.
Yep.
Okay.
So I think we need to vote that, right, that approving it as a minor change to his current order.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go about it. Ed, you agreed with it being a minor order, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of it,
All right. So we are all approving this?
Yeah. You can't have just a consensus. We actually have to have a motion and a vote.
okay.
because it is an approval to an extension on an existing contract. So what we're
I'd
doing
like
is
an-
modifying it. So I'll make a motion that we do the amendment as indicated in the minutes.
Do I have a second? Discussion? Anybody in the audience like to speak on this? All in favor?
Okay, thank you. 6:30.
Mr. Farrell,
Oh,
Right.
the seat is all warmed up for you.
here's DEP file number. It's
What?
1034 came in after.
Oh,
this,
1034? All right. Notice of intent, DEP file number 300-1034, 16 Mount Dan Road. Weber, represented by Green Hill Engineering, Inc., installation of a drilled well. All right? How you doing?
Good, how you guys doing?
Good.
I'm getting there.
Do you want to introduce yourself, Mark?
Sure, I'm Mark Farrell, Green Hill Engineering.
I thought everybody knew.
Yeah, well, they do.
This is an existing house on Mount Dan Road. Currently, they draw from the lake. It's an older cottage, and they draw from the lake, and they have a sewer pump that pumps up to the sewer line. So what they're proposing to do is to put in a drilled well, so they can, right now they bring in bottled water because they don't want to drink the lake water. So they're proposing to put in a drilled well. They own across the road. In Mount Dan Road is the sewer force main that services the whole lake. So we looked across the street here, but they would have to cross the sewer line with the water line, which is not recommended. The second area we looked at was kind of putting it up here on the road, but there would be tree removal to get the well line down to the house. And so this property has, you can't really see it here, but there's an old kind of gravel road that was
I have
put
some
in.
pictures. I can
Yeah,
show
that
the
was put
pictures.
in years ago when they built the cabin. And,
Mark, they drove down that hill to
Yeah.
get to the place?
yeah. Well, it's not too bad. So
This is the
it's,
road going
you can
down.
kind of
Yeah.
see the remnants of an old roadway. So anyway, Charlton Well's going to put the well in, and they have a well rig that rests on an excavator body. So they can just creep it down that hill and then turn it back in. Can we go back to the site plan?
Yep.
They can drive it down this way and then back it in right over here and not take down any trees. They're just going to have a couple of small branches they're going to have to trim around here when they put the mast of the well drilling rig up. And then they can also get this water line in the house without taking any trees. So that's kind of why we chose this location down here, was there's no tree removal to get it in. And below the work area, proposed to put straw wattles. And then below the well drilling area, dig a shallow spoils pit so that any of the drilling water would infiltrate in there. Any excess, they would just pump up to the road to a tank truck. And below that spoils pit is an additional row of hay bales, and they put plywood up against that to keep anything from going into the lake.
Mark, will they take the slurry with them?
Excuse me?
Will they take the slurry with them? Or are they gonna put it into the pit? Because it's right down next to the lake.
Yeah, I mean, they usually just remove it and then put the soil back on top of it. There might be some that'll be down there, but they're not going to leave a pile of
Okay.
the drillings.
Is there, does this have to be all the way down here, or can this come up along here? The hay bales?
So are the
Or come
trucks
up, we
gonna-
can go put the hay
Back in.
bales wherever you want.
Uh,
Actually, I have the silt fence
Silt fence, that's what I
going
mean.
all the way, it goes
I
all
was
the way up
thinking
to there,
tighter
and then
the-
this
I was
is a
thinking tighter
secondary.
the-
What's that?
You say you're bringing in the machine this way, right?
The machine will go down this road here and then back up here.
Okay.
So we
that's
could,
why
we
you
could
have that
extend these hay bales out to there. Is that what you were?
No, you got it extended out to there. I now understand why the hay bales are shaped like they are. So, okay, I'm fine with it.
Because I gotta put my pencil down and draw them some way, so.
Yeah.
I always make a U shape below a well.
But
So the question is, how big of a,
I just was figuring tight it or the excavation, but if you have to drive the machine down the road to get there, it is, that's like excavation for a crawler, yeah.
it shouldn't be too much site disturbance. This is not really, it's kind of rocky a little bit, so I don't think it'll be a major disturbance going down here.
Yeah,
I mean, it's certainly less disturbance to get one of a traditional well drilling rig down there, where they would have to build a road
Right.
and,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
and they're much,
no, it's
much
good.
longer and,
So Ed, here's another picture.
yeah, this is
Going
kind of
down.
the, they would just bring the well rig down here and then back up right over here and put the well here.
right.
And all these trees can remain. There's just a couple of trees, small, minor limbs here that would need to be pruned when they put the mast up.
Anything else?
Did Becky have anything?
Yeah, so, I mean, I talked to Mark about this a little bit yesterday. So when projects come in, we send them out to the other departments. So I did ask Board of Health, because it's within 25 feet of the lake, it would require a variance. So we talked about that a little bit. That's something that they would have to go through with Board of Health in order to have it there. So when Board of Health agent and I were talking, we were looking at the plan and wondering why maybe it couldn't be moved up on this slope somewhere. So that was kind of a question. It's something we thought when we went out and did our site visits too. So Mark, if they had to put the well on the slope going down here, you're saying that they would have to remove trees to do that?
Well, it's not really level, and the well rigs have to be somewhat level when they drill, so they would have to, this is level back in here, so they would have to crib it up or bring soil in to kind of lift the machine up to get it reasonably level.
Okay.
I talked to Ken today, and I don't think it'll be a problem to get a variance down here. I mean, protecting the lake and protecting your well are basically the same interest.
Okay. Well, no, that was just
So I
the
don't-
feedback
and you know what?
from
I don't know
them.
why they have a 25-foot setback from a lake. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, that's
I mean,
yeah.
why, especially on a lakefront lot, where you're limited for space, they're just arbitrary numbers. So he didn't think it would be a problem.
Okay.
They get it down there, and I'll go to the Board of Health, and I think somebody just wrote the regulations and just put some numbers down.
Yeah. All right. Well, no, I just wanted to share that with the commissioners because I didn't talk to them since I talked to Ken about that. So that was a question. Obviously, Mark, spoke to Board of Health and they'd have to go through that process. But it was kind of the question we had why it couldn't be moved, and we thought it could probably meet a lot of their setbacks if it was in the slope. So that was just my comments.
In your erosion control comments, did you say silt fence?
I said straw wattles.
Okay,
The
thank
straw
you.
wattles here, and
I was
then
worried
above the
'cause-
straw wattles would be hay bales.
I thought at one point you said silt fence.
I might have,
But
but I meant straw wattles.
you should,
Did I say silt fence?
That's
Yeah.
okay. I was
Yeah,
just
but
gonna
meant
comment
straw
on that, too.
wattles.
there's no reason to disturb that soil down near the
You're
lake.
absolutely right. Proposed straw
Wattles, yeah, there you go.
wattles, and then the secondary hay bales.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yeah, we were really curious when we went out there, how you were gonna get a drill rig down there, so,
Well, it's a nice contraption there. I mean, he took
It
an
makes sense, yeah.
excavator
yeah.
and then remodeled it,
Did
and,
they just do this?
oh, he's had it, but it's like this.
Why didn't we use it on South Pond?
I don't know. It's a
a good
mysterious
question.
machine. Sometimes it's in Maine. And
Oh,
then-
yeah, okay, all right.
Well, I don't know where-
It's not irrelevant to this. I shouldn't have asked the question.
I'm good with this now that I understand.
Yeah,
I'm-
and it is way less disturbance
I'm
to
very
be.
happy with the no trees
Yeah.
getting cut down. I think that's perfect, so that's good. Okay.
All right, we are removing the findings.
The drill
That was a part of the order of conditions.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. All right, do I have a motion to close? Well, anybody in the audience like to speak on this? Motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
Discussion?
I also move that we got to vote on it.
Yeah, all in favor?
I move that we approve of the DEP file number 300, what's the number?
10:34.
Sorry?
But yeah, it came
File
in
number
after the agenda.
1034
Yeah.
for 16 Mount Dan Road, as indicated on the plan with the order of conditions provided by our agent.
A second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Take care.
Mass DOT?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll grab them.
So you said our 6:45 is canceled?
Yes, yeah, maybe you should mention that now. It's not canceled, it's being postponed until our
Okay.
next meeting. So that will be on our July 16th, 2019 agenda for 6:45. And I received, a written letter from them asking for a continuation past this
Continuation,
meeting.
yeah.
So that way they can work towards collecting data. How you doing?
Gentlemen, how you doing? Right there.
Mr. Clardy, what timing?
Good evening. A nice night to be out.
Yes.
I guess, Rebecca, did you want to start the conversation?
You need to introduce yourselves.
To the audience.
Again, for the record, William Clardy from Mass DOT District 3. And to my right is a gentleman, Peter Reed from BSC Group. I guess in past conversations we've had, we've indicated that we've hired BSC to assist us with the design efforts out there. So Peter was kind enough to join us tonight. Their office is in Boston. So we had a longer trip than I did this evening.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend driving from Boston here tonight,
At this time of night, yeah, that's pretty
but I
rough.
allowed plenty of time, so.
Good.
Rebecca, I don't know, could we start maybe, if it would make sense, there's a newer plan, that's the PDF that BSC.
The one you sent me today?
It's the one I sent you today. So we, maybe a little of the background. Several weeks ago, I had occasion to be out with the commission members and Raul from the Cedar Pond Watershed Association. And we walked off an area, several areas, including the swale, the concrete slash paved swale to the west. And that's the area that we show on the plans where we're going to modify the end of the current swale. We're going to construct a stone swale for water quality treatment. I know I've brought this before the commission in the past. The only, or I should say, the addition that we did make based on our observations in the field a few weeks ago is we incorporated a cutoff wall. And I'm going to actually turn this over to Peter and have him sort of just describe that concept.
Thanks, Bill.
Now, you've got a pointer there.
Oh.
This,
Yeah, and do you want me to zoom into
yeah,
the swale section?
Can you just go to the second page? I mean, hopefully everybody knows where we're talking about. That's really the purpose
yeah.
of that
Yeah.
We know
first,
it well.
that first plan there is to kind of help orient. Is this how do you?
You might have it backwards.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
That was the one used against Brady.
So, do you want me to zoom into this? This is,
Yeah, that's the head off.
Because I looked at the plan earlier, and I mean, I was looking at the first sheet, and I didn't notice any changes, so I thought it was exactly the same plan that we had a few months ago. But this must be what you're referring to.
Right, so we are proposing where we saw cut that existing swale, because once you get up a ways, it gets to be in somewhat better condition. And so we'll cut off the swale and get rid of all of the broken concrete downstream of this area, put in this 2-foot-long cutoff wall is what we're calling it, and then construct the 24 inches of stone and the 6 inches of crushed stone, the fabric, which will, so the point being is when the water comes down and falls into the stone area, it won't be able to erode back up underneath the concrete swale that is to remain.
And this is in the same exact place where you're planning on starting it before? Because when we walked up it, we actually saw some other areas that had some significant damage and concern, and I guess based off that site visit, we thought maybe we'd be looking at making some improvements to those sections too. So I don't know where that stands.
Well, I think at this juncture, we're planning on going forward with what we're proposing here. And the reason for that cutoff wall was because of the condition upstream or up gradient, if you will, of where that original swale has deteriorated. And again, just to kind of reemphasize, the purpose for that, this cutoff wall, is that it will prevent undermining of water running underneath this of this new stone swale and undermining the new stone swale. So I don't know that we're proposing extending that any more than what we're showing here, although Peter and I did observe that there was a pretty well-defined joint, as you recall, Peter, when we were in the field, and we thought that had deteriorated. We thought that might be a good point to begin this stone swale. So we would remove that broken section. I don't know, Rebecca, could you pull up maybe, I don't know, some of the photographs? I don't know if that'll help us at all. I don't recall what number it is. No, it's not that. It's not that. Okay, that's the very end of this. Okay, that one that you were just on. You can see there's that section is actually concrete, and as you move upstream, it's paved. And there was actually a joint again that Peter and I observed when we were out there last week that we thought again might be a good transition as where we would start that stone swale.
And that's what you're showing on the first sheet. It's like right outside the 100-foot buffer zone. That's where because I think this is the same as before. So I don't know if that joint was picked up on the first one or not.
No, the joint is not shown on that plan.
Okay.
But we walked up the bituminous swale there, and it looked to be in good shape. There were a couple small areas, but I didn't see any that actually penetrated through the bituminous.
I think that was further, as we walked further upstream, is where the paved waterway started to deteriorate.
Oh, beyond the poison ivy?
Beyond the poison ivy, yeah. Within the poison ivy and beyond, yeah.
Raul, do you want to say something?
I just would like to interject and ask a few questions at this point, if I can.
Well,
Grab the mic here, please.
Let me use a pointer. Raul? Use this.
Probably wanted to see where it's going.
I know, but
For the record, Raul Ricard, 53 Beach Ave. I'm the representative from the Cedar Lake Association. So I guess my question for you gentlemen is, you're proposing that same or similar kind of drainage area about 100 feet up still? Is that the plan?
I think it's 130, but
Yeah.
All right, so you went up a little bit to where the swale was at least more consistent going up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when we were on the site last time, we walked all the way up close to 1,000 feet up, and there was significant damage to that swale farther up, causing erosion down into that swale and eventually into that area. Is there no plans to address that today in this plan, or is that a longer-term plan? Or because it's significant, you've got water coming from a significantly damaged swale up above that into a new swale to trap it down the end, which seems a little counterintuitive to me. That's all.
Well, again, I guess it kind of goes back to the magnitude of this effort. This, as we talked about, that swale is, what, over 1,200 linear feet? I think that was, we scaled off the
That's what I've been
construction.
told. I think you walked up at one of the site
Yeah,
visits when I
yeah.
was not there.
So I don't know if that's going to be part of this initial effort. And quite frankly, I don't know the best approach to repairing that swale at this time. I'm thinking what we've done in other circumstances similar to this, we've had an extended stone swale. But again, I think at this time, because of the length of that swale, that would, I think, would be a much larger effort.
So, you're from the engineering firm
Yep.
that looked at it with them?
No, as I said, I didn't go up to see that. Is it, I don't know, 500 feet up or something? Bill and I walked up about 300 feet, and the bituminous swale, when we turned around, it was in good shape where we turned around.
That section.
Yeah.
But I think, as Raul is pointing out,
Yeah,
and
here's a section.
it is accurate, as you walk further up, as you work further upstream, it is in poor condition.
Right. So, when we were on site during that visit last time, we talked about short-term repair and long-term repair. Remember that whole discussion?
Yes.
Talked about that in 3 logical areas. This short-term, if this plan that you're proposing is a short-term plan, then I want that stated somewhere in this plan, and then approved on a short-term basis from the Conservation Commission, not the long-term plan. You still got a broken swale above that's feeding into this new repaired area, which I know it's the chicken and the egg here, and I know that might be your bigger project for more funding, which we certainly can discuss at our meeting at your offices next week. But to just come here and say that's what I'm going to do and not even mention the upper part until I brought it up, it just seems counterintuitive to me, that's all.
Well, no, I think we had that discussion that day. I think I made it clear that what we were trying to do is address the immediate concerns.
Okay.
And again, my concern is we've had this discussion several times. We recognize that's a very old infrastructure, and it needs a lot of work. But again, we keep kind of going back and forth in terms of what we'd like to do, short term, in order to address the immediate concerns.
Well, I agree we've had the discussion several times. From the association's perspective, we again are willing to work with you on short and long-term plans. But if you remember the enforcement order sent to you on 9/18, you were to come back with plans to remediate or correct all of the drainage areas in the general area of this by October 2nd of last year. And I've got one plan for this area and one area that you've repaired and has since failed. So I don't know what to expect other than to keep asking for what was asked in the enforcement order, right?
Right, and I think prior to our May site visit, we hadn't walked all the way up, and I don't think Mass DOT walked all the way up either. So we weren't aware that these areas had the significant erosion issues. So, I mean, if those areas are eroding and sediment is washing out into Cedar Lake, I see that more as something that should be addressed now if it's causing a direct impact. So maybe there's something, and I think we left that site visit with the idea that this is something that could be additionally addressed, that should be addressed at this time or in the near future, so.
I agree. We left that meeting saying the 3 critical areas, you had said you'll come with us for a plan on those 3 critical areas, this being one of them. So this is the revised plan here. So as long as, if Conservation's comfortable with this plan in the short term, knowing the condition of the swell up above, and it's duly noted somewhere that this is a temporary plan, and there's a follow-up plan being put together, I'm okay with that from the association's perspective, but I want to make sure it meets your standards for the short-term fix, and there is a plan for the long-term.
Stay with that for a second, Raul. Bill, is there a long-term plan?
The long-term plan is, I think we were going to have further discussions. In fact, are we having that meeting?
We have a meeting on the 28th
Yeah.
in the MassDOT office in Worcester. representatives from the Lake Association, Conservation, and State Representative Ann Goby and Todd Swale will be present at that meeting. And the reason we're having that meeting is because we keep talking about asking for the long-term plan here, and all we're getting is a short-term plan. I'm not trying to blame you for all of this, Bill, but that's the reality of where we are.
Yeah.
We had one of the 3 critical areas fixed to date, and that one fixed area has broken and is already flowing sand down the hill again. So we're 8 months into it now, and not one of the 3 critical areas has been fixed to stop that erosion into Cedar Lake to date. So it's no wonder I'm reaching out to our representatives to try and move this process along and get some action taken to address the problems that are there.
Well, I mean, that's, again, we've had this discussion, and again, that's why Peter is here from BSC, to look at addressing those areas, those immediate concerns, and,
Okay.
and Peter and his group have been working towards that.
Well, should we talk about, we had a meeting, Bill and I had a site visit a week ago. And then last Friday, I went out to the district and we met with the maintenance engineer, right? And we talked about what can be done up on the Pike, because that's where this problem is originating. And so we looked at the catch basin that's been fixed up there, and we noted that there is some overtopping and some erosion below the rock
Yep.
of that. But there has been some filling in of the voids, which we think is moving in the right direction. But on top of that, Bill and I have discussed.
We were really pretty disappointed when we went out and saw that after such a short period of time, how it had washed out again.
Below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't, that was, it was bad.
So we had a discussion about really what you need to do there to fix the problem. And so what we're doing is we're going to video, right,
We're going to camera, yeah, that's correct. Some
there's a
of the-
couple,
yeah.
so really what you have is a very long section of the Pike there with, and there's a low point in the profile of the turnpike that's about 100 or 200 feet to the east of the one that has been changed. So there's a pipe there that comes down the slope and outlets on the east side of the lake. It doesn't outlet into the lake. It's about maybe 100 feet from the shore. I don't know offhand how much it is. But so we're gonna video, I'd say probably 3 sections of pipe that come from the catch basins down the slopes to see the condition of the pipes. And then also we're going to do the survey of the gutter line, because the gutter it's a low point in the road and it's very flat. So it looks like some of the water isn't getting to the catch basin, okay? And it may be a problem on the slope also. So we need to get more survey. I mean, you mentioned this area here, and it's difficult to get a good handle on all this because it's, kind of remote. Access is difficult. So we're getting more survey done. We're getting more video done of the pipes coming down the slope, and then we're going to discuss other options, right, Bill?
Yes.
Of how to take care of that water that's up, 60 feet above the lake, and how do we get it down to the lake, not into the lake, but get it down so that it's not going to erode and ruin whatever pipes and manholes and so forth that we put in. So that's kind of where we're at, I would say.
Yeah, and I agree, Peter. And again, I want to reemphasize that when we made that correction, if we can focus, in fact, Rebecca, if you could, maybe just look at the other photographs that we provided. And what we were talking about was the end of that pipe And we had some, and that was something that we put in, was sort of an emergency action.
Do you want,
That's fine.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So anyway, so this is the outlet. This is the outlet that we modified, and we, subsequent to that, we did see that we had some erosion further down gradient of it. And one of the thoughts that we had was because of the stone, when it was placed, the water would come out of the pipe from the catch basins. And I think what happened is it was just essentially just washing through the void space in the stone. So what has been happening is that that void space has been starting to fill in. In fact, you can see it there. I don't know if you can zoom into that, Rebecca, at all.
Talking about right here?
Yeah, right about there, but it's filling in, it's kind of doing its job. It's filling in with sediment now. So, in fact, it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to act as a level spreader. So it's breaking down the velocity of the water. So we think that is actually working in terms of, so we don't have that gully forming below it. So this temporary measure is working. So Peter and BSC has been asked to look at this and sort of expand upon it, and whether we revise this design or we expand beyond it to see what other options we have for correcting this condition. And as the commission may recall, I was trying to make do this corrective work as quickly as possible, and we agreed to come back in the spring, which we've done, and reevaluate the conditions. So that's what we're doing now.
Okay. So Bill, I just want to remind you that when we were on site, we talked about the next Sturbridge Conservation Commission meeting, which was scheduled for the 4th. And you said to Rebecca and I, correct me if I'm wrong, that you will have plans to review at that meeting on the 4th on all 3 critical areas. So that's not do you have a plan of what this is going to revise and look at? Do you remember saying that to us?
I remember saying that we were going to have BSC, we're going to engage BSC to go out and look at this area.
Right.
And yes, we did talk about plans, and that's what we're trying to develop.
Okay. With all due respect, trying to develop and having are 2 different things. You agree?
What I'm trying to do here this evening is to give the commission an update, and I think that's what I was asked to do.
It is, but you had committed to having some plans for us to review on June 4th, and the meeting got postponed because of other reasons, and here we are on the 18th, and we still don't have those. There's a 3rd area too, which is the swale on the north side. Do you have a plan or anything for that at this point in time, or is it just discussion on the 3rd area?
I've had discussion with Peter on that issue as well.
So there is no plan?
We are working to develop plans at this time.
So I don't mean to be argumentative, but this has started in September of last year, and we have one area repaired that has failed. You did dredge the sand and silt out of the lake, but other than that, we've seen nothing that can be approved or go forward with from the Cedar Lake Association perspective. I'm hearing a lot of words and a lot of planning and a lot of talking, but no definitive planning. And we're coming up on another year where we're going to get into the winter months, which are not going to be conducive to do any of that work either. So I'm looking for those short-term plans to fix those 3 critical areas that are clearly, I don't think you're going to dispute, they're draining silt and sand into the lake.
I don't know that they are now. I don't think that this area is causing any more siltation.
On the north side of the lake, did you not see the pieces of asphalt that fell into the lake?
I did see
I'll be happy to show them to
the
you.
paved waterway. I know exactly where it is. And Peter and I have had discussion on that as well.
Okay.
And
I'm happy to take you there and painstakingly show you every broken piece of that swale and the other swale in excruciating detail if you'd like, so that you can understand the depth and breadth of what is breaking there. But we're not moving forward, and from the Cedar Lake Association perspective, we are getting quite frustrated. And I'm looking forward to a meeting with our representatives and your office to discuss this toward the finishing of the short-term plan and coming up with a long-term plan with a date and a budget accordingly to fix this area. This is a critical waterway area and in violation of the environmental guidelines and laws. It's not like it's just something convenient that we want done. And the associations are one paying for the lake to be treated and the lake to be taken care of, and we're not getting the cooperation from our partners in the Mass State or Mass DOT, who we pay taxes for to get these repairs done. So I'll leave it at that right now. I've pontificated enough, but that's where I'm at.
Again, I think we have been committing resources, but again, I need to reemphasize that I'm concerned that every time we have discussions, we keep changing the scope. And
Wait, stop right there. Can you bring up the enforcement letter?
No, let's.
The enforcement letter clearly states 4 areas
Right,
that
we
had to
did
be
bring up
addressed.
Yeah.
4 areas.
And you have not addressed those areas, Bill. So don't tell me we're changing the scope. You did not address those areas. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The few things, you started off with the, we've been through that, we've been through that, we've been through that, to a whole series of things, and we have. We admit it. But we've got, you have 3, before us we have a change onto the lower 100 feet or so of, what, is it the north side? No, it's
West side.
the west side, yeah. That you've made changes and you're proposing to go forward with. When would that be complete?
let me just make sure that I understand the question. We're talking about, can we go back to the set of plans, Rebecca? Are we talking about the area of
Yeah.
of the swale?
Right.
Okay. So I think the last time we had a discussion about that, I had recommended, and I've already reached out within the district to set some funds aside to do that work being of the repairing the swale.
Yeah. The
which-
lower portion of the
the
swale.
lower portion of the swale, which I had suggested that we do and have budgeted to do that work in the next drawdown.
So this fall,
Well, the next drawdown period.
yeah.
Does that start in early November or?
Huh?
October 15th.
October 15th, yeah. So, okay, so that's one. Then the other areas that you're working on, do you have any, can you give us any time on when we're going to have these, or are we going to have the same conversation? I don't mean it maliciously either,
Yeah,
but we're going to have the same conversation again in 2 months or in 3 months about, well, we're working with BSC and we've got some plans coming and da-da-da-da. We've been going at this, and respectfully, you've done a great job. You've been here, you've been in front of us, going over this stuff, but the thing that hasn't come is the results.
I don't disagree with your discussion and your argument, but what we need to impress upon the commission is this is a drainage infrastructure that was constructed in the mid-50s.
I know, and you know something, I'm going to shut you up. I've heard that. You've been through that. You've told us that.
And this is a challenge,
Yeah.
a significant challenge to try to make these repairs. We're going to have to do the work from the Pike. I'm sure as the commission members have seen, it's a very challenging site, difficult site to work from. We're probably going to have to work from the top of the Pike. We're probably going to take a lane closure. So there is some engineering.
You have all of my empathy, complete empathy. I understand the budgetary problems, the whole deal. What I don't give you empathy for is no answer. We don't seem to be able to get to when we could have this, or when this is, how we can have this in a plan. I can't believe that there isn't some way that we can get some commitments to when these things are going to happen, because otherwise, it feels like we're really wasting our time having these conversations.
Well, I want to go back and talk about the timelines that we discussed. We talked about, and if we could talk about that, the outlet that we just looked at. as I had indicated to the commission before, we did those repairs as quickly as possible, prevent further erosion.
Right.
And I committed to looking at that situation again in the springtime to see how it was functioning. So we've done that, and we are doing that. We recognize that it didn't work as we had hoped, and we're trying to expand upon what we can do to improve that. So we're doing that now.
Okay, and what about these other areas? You know,
I think we need to sort of prioritize what we're talking about too, and again, that was something we talked about in the field. Now, again, this infrastructure was, again, at the risk of repeating myself, was put in the mid-50s. So at that time, it was common practice to use these paved swales and the structures that are out there. So to go back and replace those concrete swales, there's probably thousands of linear feet of those concrete swales. So again, I have to go back and say that's a very large scale project that would have to be something that would have to be a part of a much larger effort.
Bill, I think we kind of identified a couple critical areas along that swale that maybe can be included in part of the short term. When everyone's out there fixing, maybe we can fix at least where the erosion's coming from, knowing that maybe the whole swale would be part of a long-term project. But there are a few areas that really could be repaired, and it probably could easily be added maybe into this project. So maybe there's those few sections that could get addressed, even if it does have to maybe end up being patching the pavement or whatnot. You know, I'm not sure what options they can come up with, but maybe it can be
No, I agree that I
included, at
think
least where
there's some field adjustment to this plan even, if it makes sense to go another 10 feet up the swale when the contractor's out there. We can do that to get to a more lot, and then make these small repairs further up within the area. I mean, I think that when you start talking about 1,000 feet up the swale, that's a different story.
Anybody else have any comments? Mr. Barnacle?
No, sir.
No? Well, from my point of view, I'd like to accept the repairs for what we're gonna get in October, the short term, and because it's just short term and you realize it's not adequate.
I just want to try and understand when you say short term, if you're saying it's short term because the entire swale hasn't been fixed, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
This area, in my opinion, is a permanent fix for the bottom of the swale.
Oh, okay, I didn't mean to say that the fix.
You know, I just want to clarify that
I didn't mean
for
to
the
say
record.
that the fix
Yeah.
wasn't permanent.
Okay.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah. But it is not addressing the whole problem, so that's why I consider it to be short-term. So you'll have your meeting
next week.
next week with the state, and I think that's where we'd have to go and say that we're not satisfied with the way we see this proceeding.
Yep, and we can bring up the other areas that should be part of a short
Does
term.
anybody disagree with me on that?
And I think that's the time you should be advocating
Yeah.
potentially
All right.
for a larger project.
So I think we're going to shut it down now. One more comment, Raul? I appreciate your frustration.
No, I think, again, I'll reiterate it again. We're happy to work on the short-term fixes of those three critical areas. And we're simply looking for that to be done, and then, so that we stop the bleeding in those three areas, and then address and come up with a plan for the long term, which obviously has budgetary impact, and we can begin to discuss that next week. But we're still waiting on the three areas. That's my point, has been my point right along. Okay?
Gas station.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Gas station.
Yeah, we're going to do that next, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Well,
Thanks,
Bill-
Raul.
Bill, just while you're here, we have those two other sites we've briefly talked about. The Route 20 drainage going into the Quinnebog River. We've been kind of trying to keep an eye on that. It does look like that once they've cleaned out the catch basins in the road, that, water is getting into the pipe and it's starting to erode that banking where the tree fell down. So we've noticed some minor shifts there. So it is something that we are still watching. I think we left it at our last meeting that we'd keep an eye on it, and that Mass DOT would keep an eye on it too. We do think that that is causing some additional impact there. We'll continue to monitor that, but I don't want you to think we've forgotten about that
Well,
area.
I know I have talked with Sturbridge DPW on that. We've actually worked together on that.
Since our last site visit altogether?
Yeah, I've
or-
had conversations with the Sturbridge DPW.
Okay,
What-
is there a plan, or?
Well, I know there was some safety concerns out there. I guess the Sturbridge DPW actually put some plates down.
Yes, to
Some of
cover
those
the.
open structures, we
yes,
talked
yeah.
about that. And again, I guess we had indicated at that time, our maintenance crew did go out and clean some of those basins,
Right,
yeah, within Route 20 itself.
yep.
Yeah.
Right, now that they're clean, the water's not going down that driveway anymore, it's going into the catch basins, but it's going into that pipe that failed, and that's
Yeah.
kind of causing more impacts on the bank now, and that's what we thought once they cleaned it, so
Yeah.
we are noticing some change there, so it's something we want to keep conversation going, whether it's together with DPW, we look at how we can maybe address that, but, I mean, if, it's only been 4 months or so maybe since they've cleaned it. I don't remember our last site visit out there. I know I have it recorded somewhere, but I think we're gonna.
Has it been that
see-
long? I don't even think it's been that long.
Maybe it hasn't been that long, but, so, right, it hasn't been that long, but, with late summer, fall rains, we might see some additional impact out there. And then, Bill, I had brought up another site to you before that I ended up talking to I emailed Chris Chambers and spoke to Jason Benoit about. It's 173 Main Street. It's that gas station where the pipe was moved there. We're continuing to work on that one. I last spoke to Jason on May 6th, and it was something that we wanted to add to our site visit schedule when we went out to Route 20 site on May 14th. We didn't do that. We'd still like to try to have a site visit with Mass DOT out there and the property owner.
I did actually look at that site some time ago, and it looks to me, I wasn't directly involved with the permitting. That was that gentleman that you
Right.
referred to, Chris Chambers. But I did go out and look at the site. It does look like there were some drainage BMPs added as part of that. Is it a garage?
It's a gas
The
station,
the
garage.
facility.
Yep.
So it looks to me as though that what it looks to me is, just based on my observation on that day, that there was probably significant improvements than probably pre-existing conditions, because I think that area was at the old Rom's
Yep.
restaurant.
Yep.
I think used to sheet flow right across that parking lot, and I don't know if there was any catch basins or any.
No, not for the parking lot that was there, but the Mass DOT discharge was always there, and that was relocated when they put the gas station project in, and it was supposed to result in improvement, because there was existing scour at the time, so DEP ended up issuing a superseding orders of conditions for this, not the Conservation Commission, and there was noted scour at the time, which led to an intermittent stream, and when the gas station was built, they were supposed to improve that by, where the relocated discharge was, and the discharge from their stormwater management was supposed to be kind of like a concave swale leading to that back area. We've noted a lot of concerns back there and a lot of impact to the intermittent stream. And I think it might be something that, is a combination going on.
Is that an intermittent stream?
It,
And the area that's impacted, is that
there's,
a natural stream? I don't think that is.
no, that channel that comes out of the pipes, that's not natural at all. That leads to an intermittent stream that comes off from the side there. That's a natural intermittent stream, and you can see, if we walk down there, you can see where the,
That stream is listed.
Yeah, there's a stream that comes in from the side that meets up with the scouring that's coming from the discharge, so.
right, and there's some significant impacts to the intermittent stream. Some may have been pre-existing from the Mass DOT discharge, but it's a really big concern. We'd like to, proceed with trying to reschedule that site visit and going out there in the near future.
Well, why don't you just reach out to me, Rebecca,
Okay.
and I'll talk with Chris Chambers and review what the actual plans indicated for that area.
Lynn, could you comment on the impact to your property? With the mic? Could you use the mic, please? Sorry to do this to you.
47 Farquhar. And the discharge that's coming down from that intermittent stream and from that whole area, the gas station and Teddy G's and that whole area, is going through Blueberry Lane and impacting them. And then I'm at the bottom of the hill, so then it's coming down, it's all ending up in my yard, to the point where there were many days this winter that I could not let my sheep out of the barn because they would have practically needed snorkels to get out into their field, because there was a river running down the field. There's water in my cellar. There's areas of my lawn that I still cannot mow because they're so wet and soggy. And it's all from this water that's coming from that whole 131 area, the gas station, Teddy G's, and that whole complex.
So Bill, just to give you an idea, so here's where the intermittent stream comes down the side. This is the gas station, so the Mass DOT discharge came out directly here. They had to relocate it as part of the gas station project. So the discharge comes out here, connects to the discharge from this site, comes down. This is what you saw right here. Looks like a canyon almost that comes through, and it meets the stream here. And this is where the whole intermittent stream, I mean, the banks are all undercut. There's trees that'll probably likely fall over soon, probably 4 to 5 feet deep on the intermittent stream. So, something we, reached out to the property owner, we're looking to talk to you guys about it, and we're hoping that we can work in conjunction, make some modifications to their stormwater system there that might be pretty easy to implement, that'll help slow down the velocity of that water and reduce these impacts downstream. So the whole stream does come down through Blueberry Lane, underneath the culvert, and does end up in a wetland on Lynn's property here in this area before getting to the Quinnebog River. And this is the area that's, the wetlands really expanded on her property over the years. So it's not just maybe a Mass DOT issue. There's other things going on here, but it's something that we think if, we can work with you and the property owner together to try to make some changes at that outlet, that maybe we can,
Yeah, there is an
Make
awful,
some-
there is an awful lot of impervious area. You've got that shopping mall across the way, and I don't know what Rom's is now, but it still seems like the parking area is the same size as it was years ago. So I guess the point is there is a lot going on there.
This is a direct impact of the last 5 years from that side. We're not talking about, I've been on this committee for 34 years, so this is new. This is something that has impacted the neighbors. Could you just tell them what's happening with your yard, please?
Well-
Can I just say that I've lived on this property since 1978. This is new. This was not this way
Yeah,
before.
I agree.
Yeah, let Bucket up, but some of that's related to the property on the side too.
Right, no,
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it's not a Mass DOT kind of.
No, it's not, I'm sure it's not
Yeah.
a combination. Rob Smith and I, Blueberry Lane. My backyard is just, my garden's about, our patio floats.
God bless.
And seriously, and the water sheets out of my property and goes to the neighbor's property. And it's all coming from up in that area.
Yeah.
It's washing out tree roots. There's a lot of water coming down through there. And it's fast, and there's no way for us to control it.
That's right.
Is, Rebecca, do you have any, or could you provide some photographs of one that, under those circumstances? Maybe share them with the.
Yeah, go ahead.
With Rebecca?
I own the land that,
Please introduce yourself.
Tom Moore, I own 201 Main Street.
Property?
Yes, and basically what's going on, it's not that pipe that's going on, that parking lot at Rom's or Teddy G's, basically it's a huge roof that's emptying out into that back area. So that pipe may be adding to some of the problem, but the majority of the problem's coming from the parking lot that's up there. It's just emptying into basically my yard.
Right, yeah, we know there's a couple of issues going on
Right, so somebody's
here.
supposed to address that today?
We're gonna provide an update.
No, I
We're
thought
gonna
that they
provide
were
an
coming
update
down
on,
with a
this is,
plan.
Yeah.
yeah, they were supposed to be here with a plan. It's not gonna,
Are they
it's not
coming
gonna
with a
be here,
plan?
no. But we'll go through that. We're jumping subjects. We kind of waylaid Bill, because he's with, DOT.
Right, I just didn't want to get
And,
sidetracked
you know.
that it's coming from that.
Yeah, no,
No,
no, we
no.
just,
The problem
yeah.
here. The problem is the rest.
So, anybody else?
I just, Buck Smith again, I just think there's multiple confluences coming in here.
Right, yeah.
And I think in totality, that's what's creating, I mean, think about what the water has to do, how fast it's gotta be moving, to move through 20 acres of land,
Yeah.
wash out my yard, wash out my neighbor's yard, go across the street, do its damage there, and then out through the woods to the Petersons. There's a ton of water moving through there.
But you're gonna address that after this.
Yes, the meeting that you're here for is not this. What we jumped him,
I got you.
sorry to say, because it does relate. And we had been talking to him
Kinda
about
sounded
it,
like
yeah.
it was heading over there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but the two are kinda tied together though, if I may.
Yeah, no, they are.
They're, you know, it's one and the same. So that water meets up with the other water, and then we have a happy water family that's washing out
Yeah, no,
everybody's yards.
yeah,
We know that this is an issue because we've seen the effect that it's had on this intermittent stream. So that's why we know that discharge combined with the discharge from this property is a problem. Okay, that's just one of the problems,
Right.
but that's why we mentioned this to Bill.
all right. So, Bill, we're gonna finish up with you here. Anybody? Oh, go ahead, Priscilla. Mike?
Priscilla Jimas, 38 Farquhar. I'm unaffected by this, but I'm just going to give you some history. I think you know, in 2012, they fixed, because of the water runoff from 131, coming down the back side of Farquhar Road, the back homes, they were flooded. The house that sits on the corner of Farquhar and Blueberry, and the house across the street that sits on the opposite corner of Farquhar and Blueberry, had its sun porch blown out by the force of the water coming that way from 131. At that time, the town administrator worked with DPW, and they changed the pipe that fed, it's like a wooded area. If you're familiar with Farquhar, it's the wooded area. They put in a larger pipe to take the water, that could take the heavier flow of the water, and they put it underneath Blueberry, and at the back of the house, I want to say I think it's 41. Is that Coletti's, is that T-Berry, is that
Priscilla, if you
41?
turn around, it's just this house right here.
Yeah, the one on
Yeah,
the
there's a
corner.
pipe right here.
They put the pipe
Yep.
here, and in the back of this property here, the one on the corner, is a big pipe with a large discharge. And that's how they rectified it, to take the wetness off of this, is that 39?
Yeah.
Yeah, out of this house, and this second house as well. They moved the pipe and put it that way so it would go on this side
Yeah.
here and dump out in the back. That's all part of this too.
There's
That's a
another-
history.
Another pipe that we weren't aware of when we went out there that goes in this direction, which must tie into Farquhar
I don't know,
Road.
because the only one I do know is, I happen to be there, that's the one that the
Yeah.
DPW changed to take, because the pipe they had was too small to take the flow of the water.
Yeah,
And so that enabled them to at least dry their land a little bit.
yeah. And unfortunately wet somebody else's.
Actually, but that one discharges into the brook, yeah.
Yeah. Bill? Thank you for coming.
Okay. Good.
Can we,
Are
anything
you
we can do
sure
to
there
move
is another
forward?
item on the agenda you'd like to chat with me about?
Stay long enough, there might be.
Anything we can do to keep these moving? I think we have approval from the board for the change on the plan that you came forward tonight. So you can move on that, so we'll expect to see that. We'll be out there October 1st with lounge chairs and sunglasses to watch you guys fix that.
Well, make sure too, we have ample notification of when you're gonna start to make sure they get all their protective measures in place, and we gotta coordinate with the private property owner and all of that
We
good
did-
stuff, so.
We did that last time. That actually brings up a good point, and I guess it brings up a good point. And I think that's something you and I can talk about.
Yes, yeah, but I just
Was
wanna make sure we-
Access
Yep,
across private property, because we'll need to do that, but we don't need to have that discussion tonight, so.
Yeah,
okay.
good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, some of us will see you next Friday, right?
Yes.
Yep. What next, Beck?
Thanks, Raul.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. We can talk about 179 Main Street.
Okay.
All right, so for 179 Main Street, I did follow up with them last week, hoping to get a draft plan for our meeting this week that we could look at based off of our site visit we had at the end of May. I believe it was May 28th. You weren't there, the other Steve was there. So after that site visit, the town engineer spoke to Burton Engineering, who's working with the property owner. And they're working to look at alternative options. I think we talked about it at the last meeting. Look at infiltration in the parking lot versus down below the parking lot. They're still working on that. I did follow up with them last week, reminding them that we had our meeting coming up and we wanted to see a draft plan for this meeting with the idea that we could informally approve that so we could move forward with the permitting process and they could move forward with selection of a contractor to get this thing scheduled. So I did reach out to them last week. I hadn't heard anything. I did follow up with them again today, asking again for, reminding them of our meeting tonight and to see if anyone was coming to our meeting. They said that they're still working on the revised concept, but they didn't have anything to present at our meeting this evening. So, and I did ask, they said they had to do the test pits, the borings, which I thought they were doing last week. So I did ask for clarification on that, as to where that stood. So they give me a little more information that I could present this evening. That last email was about 4 o'clock and I haven't heard anything since from them. So that's the only update that I have to provide at this time, so.
So that's what you're here for.
That's why I came,
And-
but the other thing is, what are the repercussions if they're not gonna follow through with what they're supposed to follow through with? Do you want me to handle it, or does the town? In
Well,
other words, they're dumping their swimming pool into my yard, and they flooded it
you,
up completely.
you have all the rights of a landowner. You can do whatever you.
Right, exactly,
you-
but is the town, is,
We-
numbers didn't show up, so what happens?
Well, the measure that we have to,
Microphone, though.
yeah, sorry.
Well, they didn't show up, so what happens?
Well, we're gonna discuss that here tonight. There's really basically two options. We can, begin fining them, or we can give them the time that they're asking for to, does the agent think they're going to bring the plan to the next meeting? Are they really working on it? That's kind of a decision we have to make.
And why is it in front of this commission and, I'm just asking the logistics of it. Why are we here and not in front of somebody else, building department, whoever has the authority to hold them accountable for doing what they're doing?
So-
They've been, the
Yeah.
people, my understanding, they've been aware of this for quite a while.
They have been aware for quite a while, and we've been pushing them to get.
Right, so you have the ability, the town representative, to find them? Is that where
We
go?
have the ability, it's not a, I won't call it a great program of ability, but we do have the ability to fine them to go forward with daily fines.
That usually gets people's attention.
Gets their attention. It usually, to be honest, these people it's a major problem that they have on their hands, that they didn't know they had. They have a new building over the last 5 years, and they've treated the water poorly, and as a result of it, they've put, asphalt gratings in the back, which
It's
created a
huge.
problem.
It's huge. Like they were saying, I wasn't even aware of it.
Yeah.
And then it was brought to my attention. I saw some of the videos of the water coming out of the pipes. It's incredible.
So we're trying to work with them, but it's just the board, I'm just the chair, and whatever we decide to do is, to begin finding, or wait another month.
So this is the board that would
This is,
determine
we,
that?
we protect the wetlands.
Okay,
you
but
know.
you're protecting the
Planning
wetlands.
the planning board could have prevented this whole thing.
Exactly.
So when the plan came through, we did not, not blowing our own horn, we did not approve the plan for the gas station. They went over our head to DEP and got it approved there.
That's the egress that you were talking about with the
Right,
sewer
yeah.
pipe.
So it went out of our hands, and as a result of it, now we're looking at this.
Right, and that's why I didn't want to get sidetracked with that pipe. I did research some of
Yeah,
that with the
yeah,
DPW.
yeah.
I talked to somebody, and there's an egress up there going behind the station. That's
Right.
true.
Yeah.
But that's not the problem. The problem is they went ahead and did this. It didn't happen. They did it. They designed it to wash water
Right.
into the back, assuming nobody would catch on because maybe they thought
But-
it would absorb it. But this is not an accident. This is designed to do what it's doing, which is taking the water away from their property and putting it over
It's
here.
designed to allow them to use every bit of their property.
Absolutely.
And that's what, and the thing with rebuilds is that you do find with rebuilds, we're all looking for improving through rebuilds, and when we do them, we are lax as towns, and this is what we get.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, again, it's over here with the wetlands, but they created the wetlands, so it shouldn't be here in the first place. It should be with whoever approved it. Is that what you're saying? In other words,
No, it doesn't go that way.
who designed it to do this is the question.
There would, well,
So-
I'm sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so when they originally came in 2012, they didn't propose paving or putting millings, impervious surface down in the back. It was just gravel. So there wasn't anything that they were required to do under our local stormwater bylaw. So the town has a local stormwater bylaw.
Right.
And at that time, Conservation's review of what they were doing was very limited to what our jurisdiction was as shown on the plan. So Conservation didn't review the redevelopment of the site. There was some tree removal that we looked at that time. So they did receive their approvals through the town. They did put pavement in one section. I think we went over the plan yesterday. And
Right,
they
but there's
added the
also a letter
infiltration.
from the town telling them not to do that.
Yeah.
So they've got, I've got a letter saying, don't do X, Y, and Z. That's from the town back in
Yeah.
2012.
Right, well, even in.
Then they go ahead and do it, so that's why I'm back to, okay, if you do something, it's against the law, or you break the law, you're in violation, you do it anyways. I can't do that. You can't do that. Why are they getting away with it?
Right, well, and that's why we have them in front of us now, and we're trying to
Here,
fix
but
the
I'm wondering,
problem.
is there a stronger legal part of the town operation?
I don't have the answer for that question at this time. We can look into that.
You're in charge
but-
of wetlands, and they
Right.
kind of created this problem, and it's not good. But there's a deeper problem, which is they went ahead and did something, constructed something that they shouldn't have done. It's like building onto something without pulling a permit. They must have to pull permits for this stuff. I haven't built a parking lot, but they must have had a permit to say, this is what you can do. These are the guidelines.
Right, there's approvals you would get for
Yeah.
doing that, so.
Right, and I talked to an engineer, and he said, you can go ahead and pave it as long as you put some things underneath the,
Right, you have to do stormwater management.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what we're working on, is getting stormwater management.
To get
from
them to do it, but they
To
don't
do
want to do it. If they wanted to do it, they would have done it the first time.
Well, this was brought to our attention in January, working
get
with
that.
them, and
No,
there's
and I'm not
been
it's
some
not-
delays in the process.
This is
so-
on them, and that's why I don't want to get sidetracked with the other thing. This is somebody who did something, and they did it because they could. And now they can't, because they can't dump water into my yard and everybody else's yard. They can't do that. So legally, you've got somebody in the town has to hit them with a hammer, financially or whatever it takes, or make them stop it.
Yeah, we're trying to get this corrected. If it goes to court or some other means, it will probably take longer.
Right.
We're trying to get them to correct it. That's what we're working on
But they're
here.
not correcting it, they didn't even show up.
Well, they said that they were working on it. Becky, why don't you give it, what's your take on, Are they
Well,
working on it?
we've received, so we've had 2 draft plans. I think they weren't working on it, we wouldn't have received anything from them. They have been cooperative, they have been working on these designs, and there's been reasons why, as we go through this process, that maybe these designs won't work for them. So now we're looking at that design.
That's what you
underneath
showed me the other day.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Now we're looking at infiltrating in the parking lot underground as probably being the best option, but they have to do borings out there. So my understanding was the borings were gonna happen last week. I don't know why, maybe they didn't happen. They said that they do have new drainage calculations and they're working on that revised plan. So it does sound like since our last site visit, they have made progress to work on that. As far as, you know, is the engineer holding them up? Maybe. Would they
All right, I guess
find
what,
another firm, but.
what's the timeline to finish doing it? In other words, who sets that timeline to let them know that they've got X amount of time to do it before B? A, B,
Yeah,
C.
that would be something that could come from
It
us.
could come
Who would come
Yeah.
from here?
Yeah,
Okay.
could.
All right, this is where we begin. So you all will determine what their timeline is.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll tell them what their timeline is. Yes?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
You're at the right board right now.
I'm in the right
I think
place.
for you to get it resolved, if you're gonna sue them,
No,
go
I want
after
to get them
them.
resolved. It's what I told
Yeah.
Buck. I said, listen, at the end of the day, let's solve the problem. Forget about the other stuff. Get this thing taken care of. It's such a mess that they've got to take care of it. And it's, it's kind of wrecking my land there too at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good. They need to solve the problem. But if they're going to do this type of thing where they don't show up or they give you a line of crap, then then somebody's got to tell them to do it.
Well, the other thing that Buck would tell you is that they brought us a plan with detention basins, but when they went down there to survey the wetland, the detention, where they were going to put all the detention basins were wetlands.
Yeah.
So the whole, they created them, so.
Well, and we had the site visit with, like a third-party reviewer engineer, and, that ended up being really useful for moving forward
Yeah.
in another direction for a plan. So if we if we didn't do that, and we moved forward that initial plan, it probably wouldn't have solved the problem. And we'd be starting over from ground one, so.
I think I know what everybody's probably going to want is what's the deadline for them?
Yeah.
And I think that you all need to say to us, this is what we're saying to them, so that we're all clear that this is the deadline you've got to present your fix. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with that too, as long as they're going to fix it. That's all I care about. I
Yeah.
think everybody in here would probably just care about that.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll leave it at that, but I'll wait for you guys to come up with the timeline for the fix.
Gentlemen, that's,
Yeah, so I agree with this approach. I think, as opposed to saying tonight, let's find them starting tomorrow, what I'd like to do is set a timeline for when we expect to have them start and when we expect to have them complete. And if they don't meet those deadlines, then we start imposing fines.
so a plan for the next meeting? Complete
No,
plan?
it should be before then. We ought to have a conversation with them to find out exactly what the holdup at Burton Engineering is.
If it is Burton Engineering,
They've given
sir.
us all kinds of excuses about.
I said if it is Burton Engineering.
Yeah, it is.
It is Burton Engineering.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Burton was the one that did the original plan, the 2012 plan for both the gas station and the ROMS revision.
Okay.
Was done by Burton Engineering. And Burton has come up with several excuses about why the timeline has been extended. We had an engineer that was coming in here routinely from Burton and talking to us specifically about how they were going to solve the problems. As a matter of fact, the pits that Becky and our third-party reviewer found that would totally be inadequate to solve the problem were designed by that engineer, who has subsequently left Burton Engineering. The weird part about it is Burton Engineering is in Southbridge, and they have no registered PE there except the guy that just left. So Callisto Burton has to come up from New Jersey to take care of the engineering problems. It has delayed the processes. That's a problem that they have to deal with, not a problem that you or we
Exactly.
have to deal with. So that's why I'm saying what we have to do is find out you may be right. We could lay down deadlines, and they can break the deadlines, because who cares? But I think what we have to do is have a dialogue with them and say, okay, everybody's fed up with the delays. If Burton Engineering is not going to come up with the solution, then get an engineering firm that will. But we need to have a real specific timeline. What's going to happen when, and how is it going to happen? Who's doing what to whom? And I don't think we can wait for a month to ask them that.
Well, I agree on that. I wouldn't recommend we wait a month. I think that we had our site visit the end of May. It's now mid-June. They've already had a few weeks since then.
And we also had our third-party reviewer out there in the interim, and he made specific recommendations. And we need to know that these things are being paid attention to.
All right, well, let's,
The only one who can tell us that is the owners
It's been
of,
2.5 weeks
building.
since that site visit with the engineer, so.
should be ample time to develop a plan.
yeah.
Actually, I mean, I spoke with, can they do what they did? I spoke to an engineer. Can they do what they did?
Excuse me, you gotta use the
Yeah.
microphone for the public, please.
I spoke with an engineer. I asked them, can they do what they wanted to do up there? And he said, yes, if they do this. In other words, you can do that. So they already, it's not, just like I said, it's not all that complicated. They've got to dig out and put in some cisterns or some kind
Yeah.
of drainage underneath. So it's not like it's taking time to figure it out. They're taking time to drag it out maybe. And that's my point here tonight. I only get suspicious because someone doesn't show up, they're not working with anybody. Again, why? And it's not that it's a complicated solution, it's an economic solution that they don't want to do. They don't want to spend the money doing it, I get that. And that's why at some point, something's got to be done, but it's not complicated to fix.
Right. But what we're trying to do is not make accusations, but rather get a
understand.
solution.
Yeah.
And I think the solution is, we have to ask them specifically for what their timeline is. And if their timeline does not suit us, then it's up to us to bring that hammer that you referred to
Okay.
earlier down.
Yeah.
And say, okay, that's not gonna work.
Okay, we need to,
Okay.
we need to
I
do
can't wait
that.
until snow flies for this to
Oh,
happen.
it's going to drag on.
Becky, when do you want to see a plan on your desk?
Well, they said they have
They've had
to do
two and
those
a half
borings.
weeks
I
of
know, they've
what?
had 2.5 weeks. I'm just giving an idea here. In 2 weeks, it's 4th of July week. I think we should try to get something before that from the holiday.
2 more weeks would be 4.5 weeks to develop a
Yeah.
plan?
I would say I'd ask for something within a week.
That wasn't my suggestion, despite what the chairman just said. My suggestion was we ask them
What their timeline is.
what their timeline is. We are not going to dictate their timeline. We're going to ask them what their timeline is, and then we can figure out whether we can agree with it or not. The problem with us
problem
dictating
with
their
us-
timeline is, they can turn around and say, well, you're the one that established that timeline, not us, and it's unrealistic.
Well, the only problem with that is that we're a committee, and we have to agree on what we agree to. So if, if they come back next week and tell Becky X, how do we approve that?
We have to give her the authority.
Well, do you want to do that? That's fine.
We still have our third-party engineer who will
Yeah.
review the plan.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
So may I interject here for a minute? Actually, for first time, I was sitting kind of quiet. So while all this is going on, we've done nothing to mitigate the water that's hitting our properties. And I understand things take time.
Yeah.
But you guys have to understand our frustrations as well. While we're waiting, and I know the wheels of whatever you want to call it don't move all that fast. We still have an inordinate amount of water hitting
Yeah.
Mr. Moore's property, which is then flowing into everybody else's property. So it is more of a global problem than just when are you going to fix it. Somehow we have to stop the water. I mean, some of us can't use our backyards at all when it rains,
Yeah.
and have to wait days to get in the backyard. it's all been linked to that property or thereabouts. We know that.
Right.
But we're not stopping the water. I know there's a plan to eventually stop the water, but there's no, we're not short-terming, we're not providing any type of alleviation.
Yeah, we don't have the ability to send bulldozers in there tomorrow.
No, and I understand
I'm hyperbole, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
we have to go through what we have as a process to do that. And we can begin fining them tonight for not showing up. We're not really in love with fines. We don't think they work that well.
Okay.
As a committee, we, you know, it's more like working with them hard to get it done. Becky, when do you want to see a plan? I mean, you know, we have to have, you know, you can say, let's ask them then when they want to have a plan, but I think that loses time in itself.
So they didn't show up last week, sir.
Yeah.
They're not here this week. This week, we were supposed to have perk test results, I believe.
Right.
Correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong.
absolutely.
Yep.
We were supposed to have
Yep.
perk hole results, and we were supposed to have a preliminary
Plan.
drawing. Yes.
Right.
We don't have that. The week
Right.
before, we were supposed to have the meeting before, we were supposed to have something
Well,
preliminary.
we did get something preliminary then with the detention ponds.
Okay, that didn't work.
That didn't work.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing, that it's not as simple as my personal opinion is that building is not that engineered. I don't feel that the downspouts and stuff like that are something that the engineers wouldn't want to get in there and find out where they were, where they're hooked up. Going through that and getting all of that information,
Okay.
personally, I think is going to take some time,
And I understand, Mr. Moore found, go ahead, you tell him what you found. I don't want to speak for you.
We went over there to check out where their downspouts are. They designed them now, they replaced them with PVC, and they're draining straight out onto the land, but up above where the other water's draining. So the upper water, they've decided to drain up on the upper part of my land, and then the bottom part is where all the water collects and goes out. That's their problem.
Yeah.
So their solution to your problem, to this conversation, because I'm just getting involved here, I didn't realize all this was going on. Somebody went along, removed the aluminum gutters recently, because the PVC has a fresh cut on it, ran the PVC down and out onto the land up above, and then tied it into something coming out of their basement. So they've been active, they're just doing whatever they want to do. And,
Right.
And I don't,
And do you think
again,
that- and
you're not going to solve, you're not going to solve the water problem with a fix. This is going to take some time, so we've got to be patient, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
In order for them to fix their problem, it's going to require some time. So
Now, did
you're
you
not going to, nobody's putting a stopper into anything.
Didn't you also find a hand-dug trench in the upper parking lot?
The upper part, you're right, they got that draining up too. So they took
Into
that
his
front
property.
water basically and drained it out this way as opposed to down this way.
And do you think that's on a plan?
Somebody did it, yeah.
I'm
I
just,
mean,
I'm being facetious,
no, we're
because that's
just-
the thing.
This is like at your house, if you took your drain pipe from your house and then said, I don't like the water getting in my yard, so you ran a pipe into your neighbor's yard and said, let him have the water.
Yeah.
That's what they
No,
did.
Absolutely.
And, you know,
Yeah.
there's a middle finger to that.
We gotta,
That was close.
But, I mean, so what do we do? I mean, everybody's here going, well, we're swimming in the backyards.
Yeah.
Metaphorically.
Well, when we were out there,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I just want to remind people that I'm the last stop on this water train. After it blows through everybody else's yard, it comes and sits in my yard.
So we need a plan from those guys, and we
Yeah.
need it soon, and how do we get it? You-
Would you mind saying that again, closer to the mic? Thank you.
Now you did
I'd
it.
just like to remind everybody that I'm the last stop on this water train. After it blows through everybody else's yard on Blueberry Lane, it comes and sits in my yard and stays.
Getting
Thank you
better and better,
twice.
Lynn. Now, you might want to try it one more time.
So I think we give them a deadline, and I
Yeah.
say,
For a
A
plan
week.
on your desk, a week.
I want a plan, we want their drainage calculations
Yep,
Yeah,
in a draft plan,
yep.
and we can have CME review it.
yeah.
And if
I
we
think
don't
that's the
receive
biggest
that,
part of the key, though. We have to get CME to review it and then pick up the review results and see exactly where they're going with it.
And this will be the third set of plans or fourth?
this will be the third
Okay.
set
Third,
of
yeah.
plans. But for the time being too, I mean, we did have them put the straw bales up. They were supposed to put the silt fence up there. They didn't add the silt fence as instructed. They were supposed to entrench a silt fence on there to help slow the water down. But, you know, if you know that water is hitting the back where that stone wall is, maybe there's something you guys can do, working with Mr. Moore, because that's his property on that side, to maybe get the water so it flows down to the pipe that's down here. When we walked there with the engineer, a lot of it comes down to this person's property. There's actually a swale here, which leads to a pipe that goes here. Chad knows where it is.
Right.
A lot of this hits your stone wall back here. If there's some way that you could berm that up a little bit, that could help you also for the meantime, and we can continue to work with them on their property.
So isn't that within the buffer of wetlands at that point?
Yeah.
Because you guys
Well,
when
it's
you
all-
guys went
well-
out, you reflagged it.
We didn't. Burton Engineering
It
had
is.
a portion flagged up here.
Right, so
up
how do we
here
start-
was flagged.
so how do we start
Down
s-
here wasn't flagged.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think that this is resource area here. So I think if you did some minor modifications to berm that up, maybe not bringing an excavator, you know, like Chad was saying, onto his property where that swale is. But I think if you did some minor modifications here, that's not a concern in that area. Where we were looking at, which what was flagged, was on this property up here. So I think that if you did some minor modifications,
Why is it on us?
I'm not
Or-
saying it's on you, but
Okay.
if it,
I don't think
you know,
it
it's
should be,
something
no.
you could also do to help, I guess, for any water that might be coming down. We'll continue to work with them here.
So we will plan on having a plan from them
Yep,
1 week.
1 week.
their
And
calculations.
if we don't get a plan, then
Move forward with enforcement actions.
we move forward with an enforcement action.
We also should mention, and you brought it up,
Before we do that, can we vote on the enforcement action?
hang on a second. There were 3 plans that already have been provided. That puts to bed the concept that the people are not working with us. What's happened is some of their plans were not significant enough to solve the bloody problem, and only with a review by a different engineering firm were they convinced that that plan was not going to work. So they have a new plan that's going to come forward. It also will be reviewed by engineers, not their engineer, but other engineers that are more dispassionate, who don't get paid by them.
Okay.
And so they will be looking specifically at how this is going to work to help solve the overall problem, instead of just solve the problem of their water on their property. Because one of the things that was found with the second plan was it was absolutely unworkable.
Correct.
It would drown itself with the first
Okay.
2-inch rainfall.
Dave, let's bring this in order. I'd like a motion to.
Make it,
What?
make the motion.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to start fining as of next Friday if they don't have a plan before us. Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor? All right. So that's where we're at right now. Okay?
We're not being ungrateful, we're just frustrated.
Oh, no, you have been
I don't
very
want to
patient.
get that,
Yeah.
I don't want to convolute the two issues here. You know, we definitely appreciate that you guys are working within your means, but it's just frustrating for all of us. Everybody would like to see a quicker fix. I know that,
Well, you said it right off the beginning, and I told you, it's, you know, this stuff goes on sometimes. It's just, it's painful.
It's a major problem. We know it,
Yeah.
and we're trying to do what we can to help you, so.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming in.
See you in 2 weeks.
Hey, I'd call Becky on Friday.
Next Friday, next Friday. Right. We have a minor amendments to orders of conditions. We'll move forward with that one. 3 Lad Road.
Hey, Becky, we got a no-show?
Yeah.
Which one?
We have a no-show evidently.
Oh. Well, actually, are you Eric? I am Eric. So. I just figured I'd come in. Okay, all right. So this is Eric. He's going to be the new member on the Conservation
Oh, great.
Commission.
Hello, Eric.
So-
Chair up. Did you go over to the town clerk and sign in?
No, I haven't had a chance to do that yet. I just watched the town meeting this morning. So on Friday I'm off with my kids, so we're gonna go over there and do that.
You got
so.
the surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Friday?
Yes.
Town hall is only open until noon time.
Yes, I'm aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just, some people show up at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I'll probably be over there around 10.
Great. Well, welcome to the board.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's
Look forward to
fantastic.
getting to work.
After this, you must be looking forward to the fun.
Yeah, I was not expecting this kind of excitement in the first thing that I come to view. I've been told they can be quite dry, so this had some excitement. So
Whoever
this is
told you they were quite dry has a
good. I say
problem.
can be dry. So no, I look forward to joining you, and I'll get sworn in, and the meeting schedule is pretty straightforward and easy.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if you want to contact me so I can have your contact information, I can give you some information, let you know when our meetings, our site visit schedules are coming up, and talk to you, give you copies of the Wetlands Protection Act regulations and the local bylaw regulations and stuff like that, so.
Eddie, why don't you address the site visits now to see if he's available? We got a
Well,
working
the-
man on the
The
system
next
now.
site visit is when? When do you have it?
July 9th. So we usually meet twice a month for our meetings and do site visits the Tuesday before, and we usually do them during the day. So we have our summer schedules coming up where we go down to meetings once a month.
Okay.
So our next meeting is July 16th. Site visit schedule will be July 9th.
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking. We have to
Yep.
find out if he can make the site visit, or do we have to change it? Because the site visits are on Tuesday morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What time do you start? Generally, fairly early.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Okay. As long as they start early, and then I can. I mean, I have some flexibility in my schedule. I can work from home. I can, do.
Well, that's why I wanted to
The-
check ahead of time.
Today, I was sitting in Burlington when I saw, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be, coming out the Pike was terrible." So as long as I can plan for it, it's not that big of a deal.
I can give you all the dates. We have
Yeah.
we have the whole rest of the year scheduled in advance, so I can
Yeah.
give you the dates ahead of time. So
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I have that, I can put it in my schedule and I can work around it.
Yeah, so we have the site visits, and then we have 2 meetings a month. So it's 2 site visits, 2 meetings. They get quicker and easier, and then we go down, we have one in December usually.
Okay.
This, other than the debate, this is a light meeting. It's the amount of time
All right.
that, we don't usually take that much time, but we had DOT in here, and I sandbagged them a little bit, getting the people to talk about this issue.
Sure.
with them, you know.
Well, clearly there's an impact, so.
Yeah, it is, it's amazing. If you went and looked at it, it's, Buck can tell you, it literally, his garden is floating and his patio's floating. It's like, and there's a, but what
And
we,
with Department of Transportation, one of the first lines in the Wetland Protection Act says, there is no filling permitted in the Commonwealth. And what we're fighting against is filling coming right off the Massachusetts Turnpike.
Of course, right.
yeah,
And because of
To
the
say
state, they
nothing
feel
of
like
salt.
they should proceed. So.
so,
They write the laws, they don't have to follow them. So,
All
yeah,
right.
no, I just figured I would pop in and introduce I was trying to be here for the beginning of the meeting, but traffic had a different attitude on that. So I can work my schedule around that. And
we all have schedules.
Yep.
This guy suffers to get here, and he figures out when he can and when he can't, and he's always here. But I mean,
Yeah.
figuring out when you're gonna do a site visit, you read them, you take a look at them,
Yeah, so I agree with you. The earlier the better, so.
Yeah.
Right. We can even move them
Yeah, as you go along, we,
8:30.
earlier, 8:30 if needed too. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we will figure out a working schedule that works for everybody. That's not not a problem. It's at 6 o'clock is, I mean, as long as I can project when what my schedule is enough ahead of time and incorporate that, that's not an issue.
It's like having another kid, you know, and you have to get to that event, you know. It's painful.
Ooh. I have 2, that's enough.
Yeah.
And so Linda sitting on the end is keeping your seat warm. She's going to be our intern this
Okay.
coming year, so she's watching the meeting tonight. She's just sitting over there so Dave can tell her what's going on a little bit. So
Okay.
just keeping your seat warm.
Excellent.
Actually, she's still sitting in shock.
She probably won't be here the next meeting, you know. Enough of that.
We'll see what
All
kind
right.
of coward you turn out to be, right?
Linda, don't feel like you need to stay any longer either.
it's just
so
interesting,
okay,
so-
all right,
Kind of enjoyed
All right,
it.
Beck, what's next?
all right.
And you are sick enough, you can join us.
That's got my cell phone
Oh,
on
thank
it,
you.
Oh, great.
so. And that's my work email.
All right, thanks.
I can get you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you just want to send me an email to that, I'll
Perfect.
send
Yep.
you my personal
Yep. I
email
got it.
as
I'll
well.
put it right here.
It was nice meeting you all.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I think we've met before, kind of.
Welcome
so-
aboard.
Welcome aboard, yep.
Look forward to working with you. Nice to meet you.
All right. Another amendment.
I just saw on the itinerary that you guys were gonna talk about asphalt millings.
We really aren't going to, because we're going to wait till the
I-
whole committee's back in. to
Right.
talk about
I keep adding
it.
it.
Keeps it on there, but
Yeah.
I've told her I don't want to do it until we've reorganized.
Oh, okay.
And have you signed up to be the associate member on the committee?
Yeah, right.
All right, good.
I don't know.
Sounded like a commitment to me.
You got the right attitude.
I'm soft.
Right back.
You're scared away by offering the associate membership,
That's how to get him out of
and
here.
you run for the door.
No, he'd be good.
All right, where do you want to go, Mr. Chairman?
She's looking it up
Well, we
right
have
now.
3 Lad Road. This is
Go for 3 Lad Road.
right. So I'm calling this a minor change to their approved orders. So, all right. So we went out last week for our site visit.
Yep.
We had a letter from
Calvin.
Calvin. I think I forwarded this to you.
Yeah.
Same letter that we received before. So after our site visit, I did reach out to him, said, you know, we think that number of trees and shrubs would work. Sketch it for us. You can change the trees, just do maples. That would be fine. We think that we could probably move forward with this. We'll have to put it on our agenda, et cetera, et cetera. So I get a new letter from Montigny. He's keeping the same tree species, same number of shrubs, et cetera. And then this was just kind of the sketch that I received. I wanted something over the plan, but I think that we can work with this. So the one thing I would recommend, so
Down 39 trees in his yard.
looking at this and then going back to the,
We
I
penalize
think this is the
We set that land aside, anybody who would-
plan.
So this is the plan.
I would just recommend that we move. So this is the original location of, this is where the wall was and he moved it back here because the driveway was here.
Yep.
25-foot buffers here. I would say we make sure the trees are kind of outside this area too, to where the wall is. Not a big area, but to kind of expand in that area a little bit
Okay.
too. So
Yep.
do you want to stick with his plant list or?
I have no problem with the plant list. I don't know.
Why, his plant list, I thought we had a problem with last Tuesday.
I just mentioned that I wanted to see more large
Yeah,
species
large
trees.
And we had talked about specifically getting some red maple in there, or getting some maple.
He has a couple
Yep.
of red maple on his list, but it's not.
Well, we can tell him to just. So
I'm
he's
also a
got
little
gray
bit-
birch, black birch, white pine,
We didn't want the gray birch.
Gray
is that-
birch.
2 red oak,
Yeah.
3 hemlocks.
Why would you plant a hemlock
You
in this
say that every
town?
time.
Seriously. With the woolly adelgid doing what the woolly adelgid is doing all over town, planting a hemlock is like giving it a death
I
sentence.
know.
Would you like me to just to tell him to 10 red maples?
Replace the gray birch and the hemlocks with maples.
Hemlock and gray birch.
anything
Oh.
else. I'm okay with the
More
other
size.
species.
How about-
It's fine that, we have some variety, that's fine.
Yeah.
But not gray birch and
He's
not,
close to a wetland. Gray birch
Hemlock.
does not do well.
if he wants to do some other kind of a
They suggested that they
large-
plant gray birch.
evergreen, I'm fine with that too.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I don't care. I really don't.
Yeah.
Some other, but just not hemlock.
Okay,
And I don't know, I don't,
okay,
Did she put down the maple?
yes.
yes. Replace hemlock and the gray birches with maple, or they can replace the hemlock with another large evergreen.
Yeah.
Okay. Shrubs, okay. We have the Annieberry viburnum, shadblow, and black chokeberry.
Yeah. The Shablo is good because it's early spring.
Okay.
So that gives the early comer something to feed on early.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the other
Fine.
stuff is okay.
Okay. So this is a request for an amendment. So with those revisions, just need you to take some action.
All right. I have a motion to approve the amendment.
This is a minor amendment. is it
Minor.
not?
Yep, minor.
Okay. So yes, I'll make a motion that we approve the minor amendments as agreed upon with the agent.
Do I have a
Second.
second? All in favor? Thank you.
Okay. And just to give you an update for Two Lad Road.
Hang on a second.
Oh,
What
sorry.
is
Oh,
the
sorry.
final date of the, that he has?
For his permit?
Yeah. It seems to me that it must be almost 3 years, Becky.
No, 2 maybe.
2?
Yeah, I don't think it's been 3. If it has,
It was issued February 2017. So he has till February till it expires. So if he plants them this fall,
He's got to get it renewed. Because we absolutely can't do it before one full growing season. We're not
Right.
giving him a certificate.
okay.
I mean, it's only calling you up and asking, and then we vote on it. And we
Yeah.
can give him another 2 years.
Okay. Yep. No, we'll do that. So, Two Lad Road, which is our other tree removal. After our site visit last week, I put a sketch together for him, a quick sketch just to give him an idea of what we'd be looking for, identified where he would have his gravel, where it slopes down, that he needed to loam and seed with the native mix, where we were looking for trees. So I forwarded that to him, and then I did meet him out there today after 4 o'clock, because that's when he gets home, to see if he had any questions about that. I brought him a notice of intent filing. He will work on that. I said, he's probably going to have, I'm like, obviously this is just a quick sketch I did for you. You need to put something a little bit better together for this, and he's going to have his landscape contractor person work on that for him, and he'll work on the notice of intent filing. Our next meeting's July 16th. By the time he gets the sketch done and works on the notice of intent, I don't know what the way the legal ad works with the newspaper, that he'd have time for that, but I said as long as you continue to work on it, and we plan for having this maybe on our August agenda, because you're going to want to plant in fall anyways. I think the commission would be happy moving forward, but they're going to want to make sure that you are continuing to work on it. He's going to continue to work to remove the slash out of there. He was very apologetic. He said that he had the large pine in the back, and one fell recently in his neighbor's yard. Not his neighbor, but his friend who lives on your road somewhere, and he was concerned, and his friend came over, and they just kind of kept cutting. It wasn't really planned, and he's very apologetic, and I feel that he will move forward with what he needs to do. And I said, commission, someone could take enforcement action, and if you're moving forward, then I think that's fine. We get it restored, etc.
Right.
So that's moving forward. Hamilton Rod and Gun Club, I have been corresponding with them, because not only do we want them to get going on getting in there for what they need to do with the permit that we issued them and addressing our enforcement order, they also have all those exposed slopes up there that they need to be stabilizing as part of their earth removal permit. So The last email I got from him was on the 11th. They did go back up and added more hay bales up in the front. They had some issues where the septic was installed, so they're trying to work with that area, which isn't, this is from Ramco, not Hamilton Run and Gun. They think that's causing some of the erosion. Later on this week, they're going to cut an entrance into the erosion control that leads into the gravel area, and they're hoping to install a large track pad in that section to help with any runoff. And I've also asked him in my previous correspondence, I asked him to give us a time frame when they're going to start the restoration work up there. So they are working with their project managers to see when they could be scheduling it. They should have scheduled it this spring, but so that's where that one stands.
$27 Lad Road.
Yep. Have not received anything from them.
Troublemaker.
Yeah.
Today was the day that when they came to our meeting 2 meetings ago, that they said they needed some time to get their surveyed plan for where their property boundaries are, which also would be where the town line is that they're arguing. I've not received anything from them, so I don't know how the commission wants to move forward.
Have we issued an enforcement order?
No, because at that last meeting when they came in, we just had the discussion about the property lines. They're arguing that they're not in town, so they were given some time to provide that survey. So they did do that work.
Well, I think we have sufficient evidence that they are in Sturbridge. And so I guess my recommendation would be to issue an enforcement order. If they can come back and prove that they're not working in Sturbridge, then
Yep.
obviously it's not in our jurisdiction, but
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I don't agree that we have sufficient evidence, but I would go down that path to get sufficient evidence.
We have sufficient evidence. The man said, number one, he was bringing in proof of where the line is. We have a stake in the ground that indicates where the line is. It is clear as a bell now, and he is working in Sturbridge. There were pictures that I showed you tonight of that work being done. That field is in Sturbridge.
All right, I don't feel that what you just stated is sufficient. I'm willing to go along with what you want to do, but I just, we still don't surely know that where Sturbridge is over there.
okay, well, like I said.
But I agree with you that move forward with that.
Well, in the
Yeah.
enforcement order would be for the installation of the bridge, trail construction.
Correct.
Right, we want it restored.
Yep. And not used again.
And it's not his property, right? It's
No.
it's in the town of Sturbridge on somebody else's property.
So I need to issue it to the property owner, I think, or both of them. So for Hamilton Run and Gun Club, we issued 2, property owner and to Ramco. So I think I would need to issue 2 here.
But the bridge property owner is not a Jennings.
Correct.
Bridge property owner is Jablonski in Sturbridge. Why would you
Salute.
issue it to them?
No, I'm talking about, in that back field. That's,
Oh, okay. Yeah. That backfield would have to go to Ann and Brent Salou,
Yep.
because they actually own that property.
So this is what I provided them after our site visit. So that, well, it's more like over here, it's just my arrow. So this is the Salou property. This is where we saw the work.
Where does their property run, Dave? The Salou property, where does it run?
It's this right here. Ed.
So it goes down
The red.
to, yeah.
Right there.
Okay.
So I need to, think it needs to be issued to
Yeah.
both.
Yep.
But, Ed, let me ask you a question. You don't believe that the stake that's in the ground is legitimate? When a forester sends us a forest cutting plan, he has gone out and staked out the meets and bounds on the property. And then the forester sends the plan to us, and we approve the plan, and we send it to the Board of Selectmen. Board of Selectmen approves the plan with the meets and bounds that the forester has put on it for the property lines of that person who owns that land. And it was a state registered forester that put that stake in the ground and put the flag on the stake and then marked all the trees all the way along it, right along the Sturbridge town line.
Okay.
So why don't you believe that that's a legitimate line?
I just would have it surveyed by a professional surveyor. and
What is the
marked.
difference between having it done,
By a forester?
with GPS?
Yeah, there is a difference.
Where is so this is the location of the work here.
It's not, yeah, as I said, I'm not challenging
I
it.
mean,
but-
it's not even,
Not
it's
even
not even
close.
close to
Yeah.
this is the Sturbridge town line, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess
I mean,
that's
that's
I guess
clearly
that's why,
Sturbridge.
just from GIS mapping, that's why I'm saying we have sufficient evidence to say this is in Sturbridge. So,
Yeah.
Right, I think that they mentioned in one of the meetings that it was off by about 200 feet. That's about 450 or so, 450 feet or so, I think, this area from that line.
so they're saying that this Sturbridge town line is off by 200 and, or by 450 feet is
Yeah.
what they're telling us.
Yep.
Okay. well,
That's what they were gonna
That
prove
would be,
tonight.
that would be pretty
Pretty
significant.
amazing.
So,
So we should move forward.
yeah.
Okay, now,
But the definitive solution on this is going to have to be a valid survey of of the town of Sturbridge line.
Sure.
That, you're not gonna resolve it any other way. He's gonna come in here, he's gonna say, I'm in Charlton.
Yeah. But
What
I
are
think
we
based on,
ordering? Yeah.
based on this, I think we have a case to say that it needs to be, that he needs to do the survey, and he
Right,
needs to
well, which is
provide
what we
us with
said.
it.
He said, we
Right.
told him to bring it to us after the last.
I would also suggest that you guys take another walk out there, because although I don't have any pictures to prove it, I was told that there has been an awful lot of activity going to and from that bridge, and over that bridge,
Over it?
over it.
There,
You think they're practicing?
But that's up to you guys.
I know from my, previous experience that there was nothing that was submitted to the state, to DEP, regarding any wetland crossings.
Nope.
No.
So, I think the state should be copied. I don't know if you normally
oh, I
that.
do,
Okay,
yep.
good.
So in my last
Yeah.
letter, I actually copied DEP,
Yeah.
and I copied Charlton
Absolutely.
Conservation. I would do both again on
You guys are
this.
thinking I'm resisting this. I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah. No, I know.
So, what are we ordering them? We've already told them not to do any further work, but obviously we need to say that, no work.
Yeah.
And I think it has to be, it has to be restored. They can't be having this
Well-
in wetlands, or they have to come before us with a plan
Exactly, they could
for us to,
file.
right.
So are we telling them that they need to file? I guess give them an option, either you file for
Right.
the work you've done,
Yeah,
or you
that's the option.
propose they'd have
Or
to file
come
for
to
a
us with a plan
restoration.
to restore.
Restore it. Yep.
So file notice of intent to either restore it, or for the trail
Keep it.
construction.
Wait a minute, don't we want that bridge removed no matter what?
Yeah, but that has to be decided by the,
Yeah.
commission, by the
Yeah.
whole board. Right?
With a
And
plan.
I think they
yeah.
could file and ask for
Right.
that,
Okay,
but
that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we now have a bridge crossing a wetland with no plan. So why would we not want to have that removed, since it will take several months in order to get a plan approved?
I agree. Because this is not something that.
Remember that all he did was he put planks down on top of pallets. It's not like it's a permanent structure.
Right, and that shouldn't be in the wetland.
Yeah.
remove bridge, install erosion controls at base of
I think so.
Yeah.
trail.
You agree, Ed?
No, I don't. I don't think we should be doing an activity in a wetland without an approved plan.
So leave the bridge there and encourage him to continue using it. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying require an approved plan to remove it or to
But
keep it there.
do
One of
you
the two.
not understand that this is a scofflaw? And as long as that bridge is there, he's going to continue using it for events?
Well, then we can fine him to bring him forward.
Who is going to be out there to see it? It's in the middle of the bloody woods. he's violating the Wetland Protection Act, and he's violating Sturbridge town bylaws without any permits.
So what are you saying? Have him go in there with an excavator and move the
It
bridge?
does not take an excavator, I just explained the construction.
I didn't see the plan. Tell me about the plan of how he's taking it out of there, David. There isn't one. So don't tell me what he's using.
I understand what you're saying. And but
There it is, right there.
Yeah, I know.
What's it gonna take to take that out? Come on, Ed.
Well, you guys can vote it. I'm not interested in just saying remove a bridge without, without coming before us and telling us how we're gonna do it. Jesus, that looks like they've done more work since we were there the last time.
No, this is when we were there.
Is it?
This
Yeah.
is from when we were there.
It looks a little bit different now because
Well,
the trail is greatly improved in
So-
Sturbridge.
I think that these could be pulled out easily under supervision if you chose to say you wanted
Well,
it
now
removed.
you're developing a plan. I don't have any problem
All right,
with that. If we,
okay, I agree. They shouldn't do it without supervision.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that if those are left in place, they're going to continue to use that. So I think that, we need to have the bridge removed, and it should be done under supervision.
Right.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Install sedimentation controls here. I mean, I don't know what it looks like today,
Yeah.
if there's anything coming down off this, mud entering the stream.
We went out there and it was a good day and it was dry. I mean, that day that we were there, if you brought in a front end loader, you could have picked up each section and taken it out without making a mess.
Yeah, I don't want them further disturbing this and making it worse, but I also think that until they have approval for this, we can't allow that to be there, because it'll just be used.
Yeah, it's owned by Ann and Brent Salou.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where the bridge is? That's not Ann and Brent Salou's property. That's Jablonski property.
That's Jablonski.
Who's,
That's Moose's property.
no,
No?
no. That's,
Back to-
It's on the left-hand side of the road.
nope, we're on the right-hand side.
Oh, okay, then that's Brent Salou's property.
This is Jablonski up here. And there is a trail. The trail does come up through here. That's one of the trails that Moose has been bringing up.
Yep. I found a great clause, by the way, that you guys can put in the back of your hat. It's a Massachusetts state law. And it says that if you remove or destroy a rock wall, you are subject to fining. Now, here's the weird part about it. And they tell you who can do the observation and how they do it. But the weird part about this, and it's Article 51 of the state legislature, the fine is, see how many fingers I'm holding up?
$10? Yeah.
For destroying a rock wall. I don't think it has been reviewed in several years.
I don't think so either.
Right.
All right.
So do you have enough information to proceed
Yes.
with that? Okay.
Got
I'm
it?
gonna email a draft before I
Yeah.
issue.
I don't think I need it, no.
I do.
All right, I'll
Send
at
it to me.
least send to Ed.
I'd just like to see who it's addressed to, for one.
Well, I think it would be addressed to both of them, but
Yeah, that-
Now, are you going to send it to Mr. Jennings, or are you going to send it to his mom? Because she's the landowner in Charlton of, oh, not of that property, sorry, only Brent Salou.
I was gonna send it to Salou and 508 International.
Yep, Jennings, right.
Just to let you know, I have not performed my site visit with the property owner on 11 Lad Road to go over that field. He was busy, it did drive by there today, he hasn't cut it, so,
Hasn't been cut yet.
yeah.
And the brush hog is still deep in the forest.
Yes.
I don't understand that part. I'm getting hay with a brush hog. Can
I
you do that?
agree.
It's a three-letter system. It's LIE.
I think you're
I'm not
right.
aware of being able to do that now.
All right, letter permits. We have 216 Hemlock Path. The tree we're looking at in this application is this one right here. It's a broken dead hemlock. You can see it right here, it bends. That's the only one they're asking to remove. There are some other dead hemlocks on the property. This is the only one they want to remove right now. So
Okay,
I don't have any concerns with it.
We don't have.
sounds good to me. I don't have any.
Tree cutting in town.
Vote on that for
But
me.
if it's within
All in favor?
200 feet of a wetland or body of water, then we have jurisdiction over it. So people have to come to us before they take the
63
tree down.
Beach.
And normally.
This site might sound familiar to you. This is one where there was,
So they have
I don't know if
to
an
plant
actual
the tree.
enforcement order was issued, but original property owner sold it. When it came through, they needed a certificate of compliance. It was realized that the guy put a concrete patio in the back. The new property owners replaced it. We issued them a certificate of compliance. They had to do a couple plantings in the front. This is from the road looking down. This is a dead oak tree right here, very dead, right next to the side of the house. There are trees on the shoreline and on the edge here. This is, this I think is kind of their boat ramp lawn area going down. Right, there's large pines over here by the driveway. There's this large oak here, looking healthy. So it's just the one dead tree they're asking.
So it doesn't look like there's any place to replant.
That's kind of, yeah, and in their tree application, removal application, they did say that they did plant a couple trees last year. I think it was the ones that they had, that was part of the original filing for us, so.
Yeah.
What about planting some shrubs then? Is there room for that? I have not seen that piece of
It
property.
looks like there's something down, some understory here.
Right here, yep. There's something here.
Pretty
If
tight,
you think
David.
there's sufficient
Don't
understory.
you remember when we went out there with all the cement? Cement?
Oh, yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So this is it.
I remember when he was a member of the Trails Committee and did a GPS mapping for us that was wrong.
I rest my case.
All right, so we're gonna vote on this?
Yep, all in favor?
All in favor? Remember, Ed, that was 2009. You could have been wrong about a lot of things.
246 Big Alum. This is, there's a past filing of tree removal here a few years ago. I should pull it out. I'll show you the pictures of the site. So this is a smaller cottage. Cottage is down here. I'm not sure, it's not in the letter exactly how many trees were removed the last filing, which was in 2017. Joe Kowalski went out there. There was a few trees. I think they originally asked for 10 to 20 trees to come out. And I think Joe looked at it. You just decided on removal of pines. The letter doesn't say how many pines. And that they would limb some of the oaks. So when I went out there, I took a lot of photos because in the letter for the approval said that you generally ask for replacement trees. In this particular instance, you guys are going to wait until the trees are removed to make a decision to see if replacements were needed. So I took a lot of photos when I was out there to show you of the site. I can show you the birch in the water
So these are
afterwards.
current photos right here?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
This is from, I went out there at the end of last
So
week.
there's a lot of trees.
So is the objective is saying there are plenty of trees?
I think there's a lot of trees, yes.
We
Fine, all in
could fit
favor?
a few
Leaving them
more.
alone. When he did it, he was concerned.
Oh, so this is
We
him
went
coming
out.
back and
Yeah,
saying, do
yeah.
we need to add trees?
Well, no, they didn't come back and say, see, he's not the property owner. I think he helps take care of this property, but it wasn't his permit. He was the person. He said he didn't realize that he had to come back. There's a birch that fell in the water they want to have removed. So I did a search and I found this old file.
But when you looked online, was it a hazardous birch, or was it just a birch?
I would say leave it, but it's hazardous.
That's
Oh.
perfect.
I
habitat
know,
right there.
that's what I said, but
I love it.
the boater concern, safety is their concern here,
I
so.
think you should remove some of those boats and call it a day.
Stephen,
Yeah.
fight him. Fight him. That's habitat.
That's what I told him. I said, hey, we don't want you to have to take it out. We think it'd be great if you left it. He goes, "Well, we're-
Absolutely.
The neighbors are concerned with their boats and,
My kids would be walking out on that
Yeah,
right, me
and
too.
jumping off.
Yeah, fishing over there.
yeah, that's a great place for fish.
No problem.
Yeah, that's fine. So,
Maybe
set.
allowing them
All
to
set.
remove the tree.
yeah.
And they don't have to,
Gee,
Probably not
view
dead,
of
though.
Different parts of Sturbridge
Yeah.
coming here.
Yeah, exactly. So her follow-up question is, we don't have to plant any new trees there.
Right.
yeah, I didn't think that. There's a
No.
lot of trees there.
Okay.
When they come back and they replace the house someday, then we'll.
Well, yeah,
Next
hello.
week, yeah.
I know. Well, don't jinx us. You did that last time when we were out at 272 Big Alum.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, 84 McGargle. We issued a permit for this last year,
Yep.
beginning of this year, last year, recently.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me.
And lo and behold,
Well, and I haven't heard from them, which isn't unusual because they probably haven't started work. But it was one of those ones where I'm like, I hope they didn't start and didn't contact me type thing. So the guy called, and they actually have a couple trees that dead oaks that he'd like to have removed. So he's not ready. I said, "Oh, are you starting your project soon?" He said, "Well, we're just trying to select a contractor now, so we're not starting. They're not starting their project just yet." So I said, "Well, why don't you just submit a tree removal application since you're not starting your project?" So just to refresh your memory, existing house, this is the only tree to be removed as part of the project. We have conditions in there to put up like a snow fence so they're not damaging other trees because we know that becomes an issue. The trees that they would like right now, there's more trees here than what is shown on this
Yeah.
plan. So there's a 28-inch oak here that's broken. I can show you the pictures. There's a tree right behind it, and this is all trees here. I think you just picked up the close ones. There's a oak cluster right here, and there's some other trees here. So I went out there because just to look at them to know. I went out there yesterday, and
McGargle's on lead mine.
I first went in the driveway before this and I almost
Yeah.
didn't make it out. It was very scary. But all right, so coming into the site, remember you go up the hill a little bit and you come in. This one right here is the one that's dead. There's one right behind it.
And they want to remove a dead tree. I'm in favor of removing the dead tree.
Yes.
Okay, so looking here, it's hard to tell, but it's the one that comes up here. There's a branch here and this limb's already cut off here, both dead.
It's
no
the dead
leaves.
one, right? It's the dead one.
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
If I gave you less information, you'd yell at me.
That's true. That's the bunch you were talking about?
Yes, so there's one little branch
I
right
want you to
here.
GPS this tree so we don't get any other ones.
So there's
Right.
one branch here, and then there's one more up here, but they're I'll show you.
Becky,
That's
in
the
your
tree.
estimation, is it better to cut the whole tree down or
killing
to have
me
them
here.
do pruning?
What'd you say?
Cut these ones down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right, one branch here, and then this little part right here comes off of it, and that's all.
Are they
it's
gonna
all
be able to
dead.
get it, are they going to be able to drop it without taking out 8 other trees?
We can tell them not to.
No, they're gonna have to section it, Ed.
I know.
They'll climb it and section it.
logging done on my yard. Holy
Oh, so that bunch there.
It's right in front of this little
Yeah.
shed.
And
Yeah.
We knew that. When we were standing by that shed, we knew they were gonna have to cut some of those
Oh,
trees.
sure.
May as well be the dead one, right? Okay, all in favor of the dead tree?
2 dead trees.
2 dead trees.
Right.
Gargle.
I think that covers everything on the agenda. The only thing else that I had was Pine Lake RV Resort. At our last meeting, I presented to you that they want to change their environmental monitor. We asked for some additional supportive information from them, that they've done this type of work, and also to send one of their reports to us. So I've received a report from them. I've also been receiving more detailed reports from Pine Lake themselves too, going over things. So I just kind of printed a portion of their report, which has some additional information in here about their recent projects. They've done construction monitoring. Oh, one of them I highlighted some stuff in. I only printed a couple so you could share them, sorry. You can have mine, that's fine.
No, that's all right. Here.
Right. They've done a lot of engineering.
I didn't know we were sharing.
I didn't print everything. They gave me a bunch of plans on projects that they've developed for ordered conditions that have stormwater management. So I have a bunch, I can pull them up or I can just show you everything that they sent me.
What do you think?
I think that they,
And
what I've
last
seen,
for
I think it's
a
fine so
design
far. I
review
think that they can do the work.
Well, and do it professionally.
Two of the projects that they, recent projects there, I think they did the engineering, but they
That's
also
looking at
did
doing it.
the
So
oversight
they
during
send us the
construction.
curricula, so we can
And
estimate
they've given a lot of
what it
detailed
would
information. They've
do
even,
the environmental
you know,
part
wetland
job
flags that
about.
are starting to
This is part of the mandate.
deteriorate or whatnot, they're replacing. They said they've
So
done that.
they can't
They've
pick
given
the
me
engineer.
information about all
Come to
the
us for
rainfall
approval for what engineer they're
data
going to
since
use.
end of
Otherwise,
May, so they're tracking
there
a
could
lot
be
of
some graft
things,
and corruption.
which I think is great. I didn't print, there was 84 pages with this, a lot of pictures that they
Yeah.
included, which was nice to have the pictures just kind of going through.
84 pages?
Yeah,
Good grief.
So they're killing more trees.
Stephen.
Let's see, I can just show you.
Did any one of them stand out to you, Becky?
Any what? Any of these? Well, there was, I mean, see all these PDFs?
Yeah.
These are all their plans that they've developed for different projects, landscape, stormwater plan, control plan, you know, and they've done the monitoring on these sites too. They've also given a couple agent references that we could call that, you know, on projects they worked on in those towns. I feel okay with it. I don't think there's any reason to not allow them to do the monitoring. They've also identified some dead and declining trees on the property that Joe's looking at, just so you're aware that we may, on our next agenda, they may be asking to have some dead or dying trees.
It's perfectly acceptable, 2-to-1 replacement.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's okay, but I do still think I obviously need to keep a good eye on the site too, so.
Yeah.
You have consensus, Ed?
We in agreement? Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I make a,
Oh, not yet. One more item of business. New business.
Yep.
I'd like to volunteer to be the representative, geez, I can't even think of the word, for the Trails Committee.
Liaison?
Because, well, your liaison,
Think of the
because
word.
I lost it, because I had to get reappointed, so now I
Oh.
must have to get reappointed again.
We have it on our next agenda to do the restructuring.
Oh,
And with
okay.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
So we did add that on to
At
the
that
next
time?
agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure it was contiguous, because we're gonna have a Trails Committee meeting before the next Conservation Commission meeting.
Well then, I make a motion.
But I'll just go to it.
Make a motion that you're our interim Trails Committee.
Jesus.
Steve, you with me on that?
yeah, I second it.
Yeah, but there's not enough votes to make it count.
When I sent the letter over, that you were the representative of the Trails, when he asked me for that stuff.
Did you get a response?
No. I was CPC, you were assistant chair, right? Right, he's assistant chair, right? Yeah.
That's true.
Halterman
And
did
Halterman's
Haldeman
doing-
does, logging.
forestry.
Yeah, forestry.
I said logging.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?